And what's up, everybody hanging out over on twitch.tv/RPG Limit Break. I am spikevegeta, and I am honored. I am joyed to be joined by two of my closest friends in the speedrunning community to talk all about the new RPG Limit Break 2024 schedule. I am joined by GhostKumo and Ghoul02. How are you both doing today? Let's start with GK. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It is kind of nice doing this a little later in the morning because usually it's like 9 o'clock Pacific time, and I am not a morning person. So.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting. I feel bad for all of our Western brethren that are sitting over in the West Coast anytime we do a show like this. But I'm glad you.
To be fair, you see me in the morings at like 6 or 7 my time on your stream sometimes.
Well, yeah, that's usually because you haven't gone to sleep.
Yes, exactly.
Have you gone to bed before we're doing this show?
I did get a normal night's sleep.
Wait, what? You didn't watch LCK last night? It was some good games.
I watched like the first one.
And I am joined also by Ghoul02. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. It was so sad that I couldn't join in for this last year. You know,
yes.
Busy with the card game tourney, so I had to instead trust that you two would hold down the fort. But it's kind of nostalgic to do this. You know, we used to always do the prediction shows in the past for SGDQ, and eventually we would do limit break shows, although Spike, you usually would have other things you were working on at the time. But after we became staff, it didn't really make sense to do the prediction shows and everything else. So being able to still talk speed runs and schedules with you guys, super exciting and just so much fun to do.
Yeah, I remember we've been talking about doing these sorts of things for different speedrunning events, including, the GDQs and Limit Break now. And what's so exciting about it is that, like, okay, you put out this schedule, and most people, I find this with most people who call themselves gamers are like, oh, yay, I know what 3 of those games are, right? With any sort of like speedrun schedule that's put out. So the fact that we get to sit here and have a little show where we get to just go down, talk a little bit about different games. We've done some research on some of them. A lot of them we already know stuff about, and just get to talk about what is cool about them as speedruns, casually what their stories are, and just what you all can look forward to RPG Limit Break, which will be coming to you live from Salt Lake City, Utah, this May 19th. For the opening day. And I don't know if there's anything we want to do before we just jump right into the schedule. Anything we want to touch on before we just dive right in?
Well, I think real quick, something to touch on is this is actually our first year back in May since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We, because of restrictions and world medical crisis going on.
Through a pandemic, it is what it is.
Pandemic, not a big. I can't even say that sarcastically.
Yeah, right.
It pushed us to October for 2022. That was a lot of with doing it in October 2022. There was a lot of deferrals from the event, that was going to be scheduled in 2020. And then last year we did it in July, but this year we are back in May. It's about a week later than we typically do. We typically do second week of May, so now we're doing like third, fourth week. But it's back in our usual time slot of the middle of the springtime during obviously. So we have been support of NAMI. I have my NAMI shirt that they gave us a few years back on. And May is Mental Health Month, so it's kind of a special thing to have that be our time once again.
Yeah.
On top of that, I did mention the 2020 schedule. Something I'm actually kind of excited to see is there's at least a couple of runs on here that like weren't able to be deferred to 2022 that we're going to be hopefully seeing at the event this year. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so massive shouts to the RPG Limit Break staff and the games committee for staying committed to wanting to give representation to those runs for that schedule that is in a lot of ways lost to time. That 2020 game schedule that never got to happen. So it's cool still seeing like, hey, it's a couple more years down the line. There's definitely been some developments that we get to see in those runs as they have been worked on over the years. But yeah, still getting to be put into the schedule. So also to know, like a lot of other speedrunning events, it's community first here. So But yeah, it's like you said, it's also just, it's nice seeing this back in May. There's almost like some level of nostalgia that we had built up, I feel like, over the years of just like, yeah, May is RPG Limit Break month. I have my mentally when AGDQ is, when SGDQ is, I know when RPG Limit Break is supposed to happen. So I'm glad to see 5 years later we were able to kind of slowly work our way back into the month of May. And like you say, mental health month. So, you know, but with that,
so let's go.
Yeah, let's dive in. Yeah. GK, I'm going to let you go ahead and take this first one because you like this series quite a bit.
Yes, so I am actually the admin of the East Speedrun Discord, and I'm very excited to say that East 8 will be opening Limit Break again. So it's about the same length of run from Limit Break 2018, when our good friend After 5 opened the marathon with what was at the time an any percent run. So in the years since, like the game was glitchy back then. We had a lot of strats, we had a lot of skips and glitches and whatnot. But in the years since then, this category has been, well, this game has been utterly shattered. We have a few people to thank for that.
So was this a Jado?
But this was a certified Jado special, so we love to shout him out. He's a great friend in the community. But he also, we give him the nickname the Raging Bull in the East Discord because he tends to just like break things in every Falcom game he touches.
Man in a china shop.
We had it happen actually where a Japanese runner by the name of Mabo, who was he's like the Japanese Jado in some ways, recently broke one of the other Falcom games, and then Stolteheim, one of our admins in the Trail server, just posted a picture from The Simpsons, and it just says, Jado, no! So what? Oh, sorry, force of habit. But yeah, so any percent went from an hour 40-ish to 11 minutes. So we're doing the all story bosses category by Bramhall, who ran E7 last year. So I do have a few clips for you for certain runs, and I did decide I wanted to do one of the opening run of this event. So I'll go ahead and just pull that up really quick. I asked about a dozen different people for clips for stuff, and they all thankfully, offered some advice. We're not going to be showing all of the ones we had just for time's sake. So if I asked you and we didn't get to it, then that's nothing against you. It's just, we had like a whole bunch of like 3-minute long clips. It's just going to make this show like a lot longer than originally planned on.
We'll start outpacing some of the full runs that are going to be in this marathon. So
yeah, we don't have audio just because various different reasons. So this is from one of Bramhall's PBs. So the thing about this game is it is really intense in terms of like action and pacing. Mm-hmm. So right there actually is an example of something called the damage glitch, where you can just like repeatedly spam a skill to the point where just the damage numbers become absolutely staggering and you can just one-shot bosses. Unlike a lot of the runs in this marathon, apologies for the bitrate on this one, some of the encoding. So yeah, you can just repeatedly swap characters to just infinitely hover. Also, if you've played this game, so there's two separate sets of characters. There's the like main party, which is Adel and friends, your main protagonist, and then there's the Donna trio, which is 3 different forms of the title character Donna. So they're in different timelines, but because of how broken the run is, a whole bunch of this run is going to feature Donna in sections that are supposed to be with Adel's party, because Donna's party is just much stronger. So here's a boss. There's also like a bunch of swap canceling, which lets you gain infinite height and leave boss arenas. I didn't even touch on that when we got to when that happens. This is just a super glitchy run. Which is why we're doing all story bosses instead of any percent, because that just gives you more of the game.
This is one of those.
No, go ahead. You take it.
So there's another damage glitch right there, just absolutely just eviscerating the boss.
I was gonna say, if you ever want to find the holy grail of any 3D game, it is infinite height, and seeing it like happen this easily, this run is going to be an absolute treat.
Yeah, I love any time you have these are secretly maybe not so secretly, I talk about it all the time. These are my favorite speedruns generally, are the ones where, like you say, any percent went from an hour 40 to 11 minutes. So what they do is they give you a category like this, all bosses. Now, or all story bosses. That doesn't mean the game is not still incredibly stupidly broken, as we're seeing on the clips on screen right now. No, it just means here's a way to facilitate that to where you still see a decent amount of the game and you see a lot more variance in how broken it truly is, with a lot more of this ability to gain infinite height, having all of this way to stack tons and tons of damage on top of each other. These are my kind of speedruns, the absolute sweet spot.
So infinite height again. Actually, this game, even without glitches, has really good movement because of the way you can jump.
Yeah, you can tell.
You can do jump, attack, cancels, and anytime you go up a surface, it's like the way it preserves momentum is just so satisfying. Like moving around in this game is just really fun. So that's about the 3 minutes that I captured there, just kind of seeing like the glitches, the movement, etc. Ends on a hover cancel there. Is about where I cropped it out. But yeah, I love this. This is my favorite East game, and that's saying something because this is a series that's very near and dear to my heart. Yeah. But yeah, so very, very cool glitchy buggy type run with a lot of cool strats to show off. So I'm excited for that one. Coming up on that afterwards is another game by Nihon Falcom, The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. I'm a little personally sad that this is this early on in the schedule because later on in the schedule, spoiler, we have Trails in the Sky the Third, and these two games like link together in several ways. A lot of like there's a key plot line, which is one of my favorite stories in games, that happens at the end of Sky Third that transfers into Trails from Zero. But regardless of that, so this is like the really glitchy Trails run. There's not a ton of the glitches in older games, but this one has a trick where from like very early on in the game, you warped like the third to the last dungeon of the game. It's really, really busted. The normal length of this game's any percent mixed turbo category is like 3 hours, and then its no turbo is like 4. So full turbo, full glitches is like 30 minutes. It's really busted.
Jeez.
And you know Dowolf is just going to be talking the entire time, so you could probably somehow manage to fit the entire story of this game in those 40 minutes.
Dowolf talking a lot? What is this madness?
Why? Yeah, Dowolf, no stranger to running extremely fast-paced, speedy, moving along runs at various marathons over the years. So yeah, a perfect kind of runner to pair with this
is one of my personal favorite games of all time anyway. So like, I'm just happy to see this on the schedule. Like, we didn't get this game in English. The game released in Japanese in like 2011 or something. We didn't get this in English until 2022. So it's just exciting to have this on the schedule for even that purpose.
Mm-hmm. I really like I feel like just the pacing of these runs is something a little different. I really, really like the games committee, the schedule makers for RPG Limit Break, pairing like two very broken runs and very broken games to kind of kick off the marathon. Because I feel like it is not that there aren't like glitches and stuff in RPG speedruns, but I feel like it's not the first thing that a lot of viewers think about when they think about an RPG speedrun. It's like, oh, it's going to be more like a chill, comfy time. Like, no, we're going to slap that thought right out of your brain. We're going to come at you 1,000,000 miles per hour with all the glitches and tricks and everything, beating these games that are supposed to be many, many hours in, an hour, 2 hours max for a couple of these. So I really, really like that kind of tone that you're setting for the beginning of the marathon.
Also really fun to see kind of the shared DNA in these two, like a little bit of a mini Nihon Falcom block to start the marathon off too. And, especially, ease is a great way to start off, with the sheer speed, and then followed up with like, hey, we're going to like a slightly more traditional RPG, but done in a very untraditional way, I think is super, super cool to see. A lot of variety in the opening, couple runs in the schedule for sure.
Absolutely.
Then we get to our first Western RPG.
Yeah, and it's super cool to see the Western RPG representation here in Mass Effect 2, which, Mass Effect is a series that needs no introduction. I'm not, you guys might know this a little better than I do. When's the last time we've had Mass Effect representation, just the series itself, in an RPG Limit Break? I'm not sure how many years it's been.
So actually, it was offered for many years early on, and for various different reasons, it didn't end up in the schedule until 2022. It was actually the opener by Sanjan. So she's going to be, once again, one of the early runs of the marathon representing this game with the New Game Plus No Left Behind incentive, which that is a pretty important part of the story of those games. That's a pretty big incentive to have on there.
Yeah, that incentive by itself, as anyone who's not familiar with it, you could probably somewhat assume, basically, from what I understand, it's all of the various crew members. You are not leaving anyone behind. They all must survive. So it kind of tugs on the same heartstrings, similar to the same vein of like save, kill the animals and stuff we've seen with like Super Metroid and whatnot over the years. If you want to save them, you have to get in that cache right there at the beginning of the event.
And again, it's also like these are Super Bowl. I believe like the Mass Effect cast, people just adore these characters in the storyline. And, you know, 2 is generally considered to be like an all-time masterpiece of a video game as well. So seeing the ability to have that and these characters still represented, you know, both in the game and in the incentives is so exciting too.
Absolutely. Other than that, Sanjan, just one of the best runners of the game. She has the #2 overall time here in any % New Game Plus. And I think what I really like, because New Game Plus is always like kind of a divisive, is it more interesting, less interesting than New Game, and a lot of speedruns out there. I actually really like it in a game like this where there's a lot of gunplay, a lot of abilities that you're going down to upgrade your character and whatnot. I think a game like Mass Effect 2 lends itself really, really well to, I want to see when you come in with that full build or anything, how is the speedrun going to look? From watching through it, it looks super, super cool. Like you say, Ghoul, Mass Effect 2, the definitively most beloved game in an unbelievably beloved franchise. This one should be able to just knock it out of the park. And you like to see the Western RPG rep right there on day one.
Yeah, something so I think I did a marathon called RPG Blitz in it was either for 2018 or 2019 was the first one that we actually debuted Mass Effect on the Limit Break channel. And the amount of people I saw just come into chat, just like sharing their like love and nostalgia for this series has just kind of shown like it does have this place on the Limit Break channel. It does have this like this fan base that, you know, just loves this game so much and loves to see the runs of it. So I'm excited.
Another fan base that is getting some unreal, like awesome representation here in the marathon. The first of, I counted them up, 17 Saga games being represented here in RPG Limit Break 2024. We're getting it kicked off with Romancing Saga. Here, y'all need to grade me how I'm pronouncing it. Saga? Should I be saying Saga? I'm going to say Saga. Minstrel Song remastered here by Orient Sky Dragon. Their first of a couple runs here in this marathon representing the series in the 10FS Saruan New Game category. And this is just another one. So here's in doing research for this game. First of all, the Saga games, look incredible. Very cool looking games casually and super cool looking speedruns. When I first started watching their PB for this run, I thought my video was running at ×2 speed. I went down and looked at my thing. Nope, it was going at the normal speed. This game moves incredibly fast. All of the menus, and we're talking about in the menus, in the combat, in the movement around. When they say fast travel, by God, they mean fast travel. You go into the menu, you click the thing, bam, you're over there all of a sudden. It is Goku instant transmission levels of get where you need to go. Just the whole run moves so fast. And what you get right there is a run that is impossible if you haven't, maybe if you've even played these games, to understand what's going on, to know what's going on. So it's gonna be super, super cool to see anytime. The best part about getting to do speedruns live at these events is the commentary that's going to come with it and be able to, guide the viewer's eye and let them know this is what's going on in all these different fights, in all these different little sequences throughout the run. And in one that looks like it's got a lot of variance in kind of what tools and different characters they utilize in all the different combat sequences. This run looked absolutely fantastic and just keeping going, a banger day one here of this Limit Break. So there's my pitch. Y'all should watch it. Again, there will be many Saga games here in RPG Limit Break 2024. And Ghoul, we're going to hand it off to you here for our kind of closers, our night capper for Sunday, starting with Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Yeah, this is the newest game on the schedule. I believe this only came out like a week or two before submissions. It's kind of funny. This ended up in like that same block of games. And, you know, with the Limit Breaks podcast, we talked about, you know, the Persona 3 with Persona 3 Reload coming out and Like a Dragon for like Infinite Wealth. This came out in that like same general time frame, and you know this game came out. People adore this game, and it's this super fast-paced action RPG. Has a lot of DNA with almost like a Kingdom Hearts or like a Tales game as far as like the speed and the way the combat plays, but also like almost like Monster Hunter type of DNA in the game, where there's like these like big parties to take down these big bosses and some super cool things. I was looking through and watching the speed run of this, you know, to prep for the show, and you're switching characters a lot. There's, you know, portions where you're controlling Siegfried, who's just got this big great sword. You have the Charlotta, who's this, you know, little girl with a sword that, you know, does a lot of like twirling and quick attacks, and all these different characters. It's super interesting, and I love seeing a game that gets like developed and pushed this quickly and gets to showcase this soon. And Grand Blue Fantasy, if you like don't know much about it, it's a super, you know, fascinating world. The games are gorgeous. There's beautiful art everywhere. It's a super easy watch, even if you don't know anything about the games or anything else. And it's so much fun to watch. And the time that I spent, you know, kind of looking at it for research for this, it's so much fun.
Yeah, actually, I had sort of in bouncing around doing research for just a bunch of these different games, I was like, this run also looks super dense because it's not a short run. It looks like something that you would fit in like an hour and a half. This is a near 4-hour category that Lightning Leon's going to have to keep up the endurance for, do a ton of different combat optimization for. This game looks super cool. I like anytime we get representation for just newer stuff that has just come out, because that's going to be the stuff. Well, are people speedrunning at day 1? Yeah, we're speedrunning at day -80. Like, we're figuring stuff out early.
We're watching the trailers and the hands-on previews, and we're guessing how things are going to play out.
Oh, that's gonna, yeah.
So super exciting. You know, I again can't say enough good things about that run. If you haven't seen, even if you know nothing about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink or Grand Blue Fantasy as a series, there's going to be something that you're going to watch and go, wow, this just looks so cool, and there's a lot going on with it. And then we're the nightcap, the last run of the day, is Ogre Battle: March of the Black Queen, which is the Saturn version. We've had on the Super Nintendo version in the past, but this is done by Sprock
Saturn
Rocket.
rep.
Yeah, there is a typo on the name there. It is supposed to be Spock Rocket. My sincerest apologies. That slipped through.
That's my bad. I'm the one that typed all these in, so whoops. But again, this is a very different type of game. So we go from the super fast action RPG with all these different elements and character changes, and we go into what almost plays out almost like a combination of like a Final Fantasy Tactics meets StarCraft in a way, where you're moving these characters on the map, and the optimization then becomes, okay, what are my parties that I need? Where do I send them on which times? And what are the decisions that I'm making with that? And, you know, these games are gorgeous. They have great music. There's so many interesting decisions being made at all times on where each unit's going. Should be a super fun watch. I think this is one of the most underrated series, and I'm excited because this series is also getting a lot of love with Unicorn Overlord just coming out, which takes a lot of similar DNA from Ogre Battle as like the mechanics and the way the game plays. And I think there's a lot of familiarity, and if you're used to that, and you know these, you know, a new look on that game, kind of looking back at the origins of a very similar type of game, I think will be super exciting for people. And you know, hour 25, very fast for what would otherwise be a super long game casually, with a lot of difficult parts to it. So
yeah, and something to note is just kind of one of the things I've really enjoyed about the way the games committee sets up their schedules is, if you look at like the first day, you get kind of like a nice little microcosm of everything that the event has. Like you have action RPGs, Western RPGs, turn-based, real-time, fast turn-based. You have strategy. So you're kind of getting a little bit of everything on this first day.
Yeah, and that is just, as we're saying, the first day. The first of 7 awesome days here at RPG Limit Break 2024. An absolutely stacked schedule as we now move into Monday, representing each of these one day at a time. And man, this is how stacked the schedule is. This one is going to start off like basically midnight that night with Dragon Quest 3. a little indie title. Not many people have maybe heard of this one, but make sure you show up for it. Now, this is one of the granddaddies of all just RPGs in general, and especially, I would say, in the speedrunning community, especially over in the Japanese speedrunning representation. That, Ghoul, I remember us talking about this. This is going to make us feel old. Maybe 10 years ago on some, it wasn't Discord, it was probably like Skype or something. Talking about just how competitive it is to even have a time on the leaderboard for Dragon Quest III. One of the most speedrun games of all time. If you go to speedrun.com and you look at this, you go down, there's like 7 Western runners maybe who have grinded this enough to even qualify in the top like 200 or so. So when I tell you Hactical, and this is not any sort of shade, is the 103rd ranked time in Dragon Quest III, that time is cracked. That is an incredibly impressive time just outside the top 100, because that's how many incredibly talented runners have put time into this game. It's just one of the, it's up there with a lot of the original Final Fantasy, especially like FF6 and whatnot, this being a Super Famicom game. For just one of the most beloved RPGs of all time. There's tons and tons of, as you would imagine, RNG to this, stuff that they have to adjust to over time to make these runs work. And it's just gorgeous Super Famicom sprite work that you get to work with the entire time. Dragon Quest III. I don't really have to sell y'all too much on it. It's great.
I always say this is the SMRPG speedrunning of Japanese speedrunners. In the same way that in the late the early 2010s, every single US speedrunner had a 16-star time in SMRPG. If you speedrun
64 and 64.
SM64.
64. Oh my gosh.
We'll get to Mario.
We'll get to Mario. Yeah, everybody had the 16 stars
as well. Yeah.
But everybody had the 16-star PB in Super Mario 64. This was that for Japanese speedrunners, and it was incredibly competitive. There's so much information and so much knowledge that in this game, I just got done talking with the Countess about Dragon Quest speedrunning in general, and DQ3 is famous for this combination of reacting to randomness, but also very, very fast menuing and decision making you have to react to. It is one of the most brilliant, deepest, most explored RPG speedruns of all time, and if you haven't seen one, it's an absolute treat to sit down and experience that for the first time.
God, that's kicking off. That's an overnight slot. That's how good this schedule is. That's incredible. GK, let's keep the schedule going. Tell us a little bit. We made you have to take this one. A series you hate. Custom Robo. What is this?
No, nobody wants it. I love Custom Robo. We pushed really hard to get in the GameCube Custom Robo in Limit Break 2018. So I'm really happy to see that this one is on the schedule. So for those of you that aren't in the know on the Custom Robo series, it's a very oddball Nintendo series. It's like a mixture of like an arena fighter and like a robot little, mech type game. But it has like an RPG kind of progression to some of its story. It's adjacent, but it is still nonetheless very cool and nostalgic. And this is the second game on the N64, which sadly we didn't get in the United States. It was going to be run by Bomb, Japanese runner, just a genuine sweetheart, and we love him in the Custom Robo community. And V2 is kind of interesting in the Custom Robo speedrun scene because of the game forces you to get the various different parts, because one of the things that kind of happens in the GameCube run is after the 5th day, we don't get any new parts. There's not a whole lot of the custom. It's like 99% Robo, 1% custom. There is a lot more customization kind of out of necessity in this run. So you see a whole ton of different types of parts, different types of Robo models being used. And I watched Bomb do a few runs of this game, and he is so good at just quickly clearing out fights. I want to say in the original speedrun of the first game, there's 60 something fights. In the GameCube one, there's 64. The run of V2, I want to say, has 90 different battles, and the fact that it's still under a 2.5 hour run is so impressive. And Bomb is just cracked at this game. So I'm really excited to see this one get in and get some of that Japanese runner representation, but also the representation of this series that is kind of a cult classic in the West. There are people who like it, but doesn't quite, it is a Nintendo series that is kind of on like the, fourth or fifth tier of like popularity, but like anyone who has played the Custom Robo series just loves these games.
I'm glad at least over in the West we got Quest 64. I'm like, dude, we got like 4 RPGs for the N64. How did this one not come over?
This is like the third N64 game in the history of this event.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, how often are N64 games even in RPG Limit Break?
We had Paper Mario
like an
twice.
Xbox console getting brought into like a GDQ. It's like, whoa, this is a rare time. A rare species.
We've had Quest 64 and we have had Paper Mario.
Yep. That's it.
Yep. I submitted like the only other, or no, there are 2 other N64 games that are on the backup list: Aiden Chronicles and then Pokemon Stadium. Like that, Pokemon Stadium is on the backup list. Like that's how much you have to reach to get an N64 game.
Hey, this is Ogre Battle 64 Erasure, by the way. I will not stand for this.
Hey,
I was going to say, probably the
nobody
actual,
submitted that.
Yeah.
Nobody submitted that.
As far as the submission goes, yeah, but there's just so few of them on the console in general, and I'm a homer for the N64 in general. I adore this stupid console with like all my heart, so I love seeing it. Somewhere back around here, I don't know where it is, I've got the actual like N64 controller for the Switch too, which is like super fun. But
dude, it's as someone who likes to play N64 games on not the N64, that controller is really good, by the way. Anyways, Ghoul, let's go ahead and kick it over to you. Talk about our next game right here on the schedule. We had our first co-op run of the event.
Yeah, we have Arch and Alico, Melody of Eternia. This
Lemia.
Lemia. Oh gosh, this is.
I was like, your brain has gone tails, but brain rot.
Yeah. Forgive me a little bit. But yeah, I like. This is another one of those Gust games, and there's just something about Gust games in general that is just fantastic to watch. And you have great music, you have great visuals, the combat. I looked at this a little bit. Looks super engaging. There's a lot of depth to it. And oh my gosh, these 2 runners, you have Dowolf and PX, who are going to just absolutely kill this run. It's going to be so much fun, to see. And they're both super passionate about it. I know that like PX with this game is like, oh my gosh, it's in. I'm so excited. I want to do this forever. So you have like that combination of like this passion for this, it's a game that probably people haven't heard of before, but as somebody that like adores these Gust games, I'm so excited to see the Gust representation after we got our first Atelier run last year. And I really can't say enough good things, and about how it's one of the exciting things about RPG Limit Break as an event too, is you see some of these smaller games, get a chance that wouldn't otherwise. Who would actually expect to see an Arch and Alico run happen at the event? Probably not many people, but I guarantee you this is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's cool to see, that it wasn't just a one and done, because this is a series that I've never heard of either, that got into last RPG Limit Break we're talking about last year. And, it wasn't just we'll throw them a bone once every 4 years. So no, next year coming right back here at a solid morning time slot. And, potentially, hey, if the community is passionate about it, you're going to get some representation here at the event. So with that, we go into another game that needs no real introduction, although I guess maybe the category and like the way we're playing it. Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide with the 6-character 9 Esper Kefka unlock race in our first race of the event. Between Gar, 1 free fits, and PBN.
It says 5. The actual number is 6, and I know what some of you are probably thinking. That's how they set it up.
Listen, I wasn't gonna point it out. I already got crap for that the other night from Ghoul for being like, "Oh my god, they know what they did."
Yeah, so that's just kind of like the way that they have it set up, so that you get like a sufficient amount of checks, and then you beat the game. Yeah, more or less. But yeah, it's so. The thing I actually do want to touch on really quick I think is really cool is for the first time since 2016, we have all of the SNES Final Fantasy trilogy in some capacity on this schedule, which is really cool to see.
Oh yeah, we do. We have a 4, a 5, and a 6 on this schedule. We're actually going in reverse order, reverse fantasy order that we'll be doing for this event, at least of the SNES era. But yeah, I I'm obviously, Neil's, I'm sure all three of us can attest this in some way, just a fan of randomizers. And you like to see it anytime being represented at the event because it's still going to be super, super fast menuing that, yes, you don't necessarily know what that menuing is going to be going in, but you can still watch RPG speedrunners. It's so second nature to them that they know exactly how they want to set everything up. And you get one of these situations, as someone who just finally played FF6 this past year, that you're going to have to find 6 characters, 9 espers. And not only, yes, are you going to have to find maybe a lot of the items and whatnot that unlock later parts of the game. It's your whole makeup of your party that you're putting together. That, all right, I've got these 6 characters. I've got this amount of natural physical attackers, or this amount of characters that lean better into mage builds and whatnot. Do I have a white mage, whatnot, yada, yada. How is that team chemistry coming together? And then the espers on top of that not only represent different elemental damages and status effects you can inflict on your foes throughout the run, but also dictating what your level up system is going to be throughout it. Are you able to pump more strength or magic or whatever stats you're wanting to do throughout it? And for all 3 of these runners, potentially finding completely different, effectively, team chemistries and builds to go through the run and still seeing them adjust on the fly to that. I love any sort of a gear-based based randomizer that you're going to get to watch here. I think about the commentary that's going to get to come with this. Randomizer races are super sick, and I'm glad they're going to be here prime time on the second day, Monday, here at RPG Limit Break.
I'm just glad Bob left after the Dragon Quest call, because he might want to fight you for that. We're teasing. Bob sometimes makes these jokes about that kind of stuff. I'm excited to see this. The SNES Final Fantasy randomizer community between Free Enterprise, Career Day, and Worlds Collide has always put on a pretty good show. And then we're going to be this isn't actually the conclusion of the day. There's just enough runs on this day. We have 2 separate slides for it.
There's so much.
So here is the second Saga run, or Saga run, of the 8 that are on this schedule. I say 8, but technically, if you stretch, there are 8 with the word Saga in their name. This one doesn't have it in English, but in Japan, it was the first ever Saga game, or Saga game. So this is going to be the any percent no saw skill. In 2018, we had Big Fong Balls doing the true any percent category of this game. That run was a treat. Just had hilarious commentary with Bic, Deuce, and Clear Tonic, and just that run is a very heavily manipulated kind of run. Spike bringing in the dog.
Yeah, sorry. She was crying. Either she gets to be on screen in my lap, or she's going to be crying the whole time.
Yeah, it's just prequel to The Dog Island. That was one of our favorite little community things with Limit Break. It was on the backup list once. So there's the dog for the shout out there. So Final Fantasy Legend, this particular run forbids the use of the Saw skill, which is because of a manipulation, you can just use it to one-hit KO bosses. Because there's a lot less manipulation and the skill is banned, the run is going to be a lot more improvised, a lot more ad hoc. I think it's Puexel, who, if you don't know, is one of the big reasons that we're even all on this channel. He was the one who started the channel, the one that really spearheads the event. And also very good RPG speedrunner who consistently brings excellent gameplay and commentary to pretty much every run that he does.
Has a little bit of experience with running RPGs at marathons, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So
I like sucking up to my boss too, so. No, Puexel is honestly one of the best, RPG speedrunners in the world, and always gives fantastic commentary. So
yeah, I don't think we would be staff if we didn't care enough about the people in charge.
For sure.
So, and then we're going to go on to the next few runs of this Monday with Final Fantasy Legend 2. This is going to be a glitchless run done by Geyer, who is, probably Limit Break's most mainstay runner at this point. So
he's had a run at every event for years now, hasn't he?
I think he's had one in all of the limit breaks. With Bick not having submitted this year, I think that leaves him the last survivor from the 2015 squad. But he's very excellent at his commentary. He's been running, old school Final Fantasy for a very long time. He always brings the show with, commentary with execution. This run being a glitchless run kind of does a nice little contrast from Final Fantasy Legend 1. So you get kind of that nice little variety there. And having seen this run, when I put on, I think it was Blitz 2020, we had a 4-way race of this game, and it's just a really cool run. I believe a couple of route changes have happened in the last few years for this, but yeah, it's just a pretty demanding run, and I think he's gonna nail it.
I'm as big a Geyer fanboy as you will ever see. He's both a friend, but also he just does such a great job with the commentary on these runs, and just super engaging, has a great voice to, get you through these. And even as a game I really don't know that well, I'm sure I will be there listening to this run and just enjoying every minute of it.
I also I love to see any sort of, obviously Puexel and Geyer are great. I like to see the Game Boy stuff here, and it's like not at, because generally I think like Game Boy games, like they're inherently very comfy to watch. I find they're simple in that regard, and I like to see them here in more of like a evening, almost like kind of prime time slot here. I think that's super cool. These are back to back right there at that time slot.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it's kind of funny too, because these are like, a lot of times we think of Game Boy, at least like for me, because I'm a little bit, younger, I always think like Game Boy Color. It's like, no, this is Game Boy. This is like
Game Boy.
This is like black and white on the little like green screen that like looks like doo-doo, and it's But like you're right though, like there's like something comforting about playing this game that looks like it could fit on a graphing calculator, and they just work. For whatever reason, there's something about these games.
Absolutely. And now to go from 2 colors to many, many colors. A bit of a graphics upload. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed by Aeon Frodo. One of the 2 cappers of the night. 8% easy with a normal difficulty incentive upgrade. Ghoul, tell us a little bit about one of the most popular RPGs of the modern era.
I don't know why you would assume I know anything about this run or this runner.
Oh my god! I was just throwing it out there for somebody, see if someone would dunk it.
No, this is obviously this is the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that came out, I believe, last year after the thing. And I've heard this described by people that like Xenoblade and Xenoblade Chronicles as a series. This is the best DLC of any game they've ever played, as far as like the sheer quality of the story, how interesting it is, how it ties together these 3 games that really. They have like common roots and storylines and a common world, but also like just like in general, this is just a great way to tie these games together, and it's so fantastic. The run itself is super interesting. Xenoblade runs are this weird mix of almost like an MMO style combat, but with this really fascinating movement engine where you have to avoid encounters and do this platforming, and these runs are so cool. Very, very excited to see this done and complete the entire Xenoblade saga for RPG. I believe literally every Xenoblade now will have been run once this has been done. Every DLC, and that's super, super cool.
This is pretty much all that there was left for that series. Other than like I guess the Switch Definitive Edition, but I mean that's mostly the same as the original. But yeah, we had that in 2017, and all the way since then we've had Xenoblade 1, 2. Horna X was 2022. 3 was last year. Future Connected was also in 2022 by the same runner, and then now we have the DLC here, which these runs get to being like 6-7 hours, so having it at like 2 hours is really nice. I know the community for this game has put in a lot of work to optimize this. There's not quite as many options because it is a bit more constrained in terms of like what you're given, because the DLC that's mostly self-contained in terms of like resources, but there's still a lot of really interesting routing. I've been kind of following this one along for a while, so I'm really excited to see this run here.
And completing our Monday group here, we have got kind of one of the indie darlings of RPGs. the last like 5 years back, coming out in 2022. We've got Chained Echoes in, and we got to talk a little bit with Artanelko earlier, that I like anytime we get to see co-op runs. You got two amazing runners here in Moonblaze Wolf and Ferric Fox, taking on the any percent glitchless category. And this is just absolutely gorgeous sprite work, a beautiful OST to go with it. And like I said, just one of the more modern, beloved indie games that we've been exposed to lately. Lots of cool combat. I loved all when I was watching it, just the visual art style on any of the attacks or spells or casting that all the characters were doing. It was just kind of a joy, very comfy to watch. It's a new game. It's cool.
Yep. So indie RPGs have been kind of seeing a bit of a rise recently. For the longest time, they were kind of a more like cult popularity thing of like people who liked indie RPGs followed a whole bunch of these games, and now more and more of them, like Chained Echoes and this past year's Sea of Stars, which is also on our backups list this year, have kind of been able to, you know, establish themselves within like the indie gaming scene. We had Chained Echoes at an any percent category last year, which was a super glitchy broken run. So it's going to be kind of nice to see something that actually takes into account a more thorough, holistic look at the game, more, you know, routing decisions based on like the game's more quote unquote intended mechanics. So I'm really excited to see this one kind of get like the full treatment after having like kind of the taster last year.
Yeah, now we get to see a little bit more of the main course of Chained Echoes here at RPG Limit Break. Going into our third day, going into Tuesday, May 21st, we're going to be kicking off in the evening slot with Dragon Balor, which obviously we were talking earlier about the N64 with having custom Robo. Hey, we found like the third RPG on this console. PS1, no stranger to the RPG Limit Break main stage with, you know, they had a few more RPGs representing it. And here you get one that like I had never personally heard of, but a really sick looking action RPG in this. One with a bunch of different categories. And here, Hemmings will be showcasing the Kadoom Path any percent. It's got that classic, those chunky polygons working on the PS1 engine. Yeah, another one that should be super fun to see in the evening. And then after that, GK jumping into a game that in many ways is very infamous within the speedrunning community. Believe it or not, we're not doing the full 100% category here of Boton Kaidos 1, the HD.
That would be too long.
We're going to run the very short 5.5 hour new game category. And tell us a little bit about Boton Kaidos and Shampoo.
So that's actually an incentive. I actually pitched to Legrand, like, you need to put in an incentive to grab the shampoo bottle. Just that is too famous to it. So Boton Kaidos, Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean is the first game of this duology. There's also Boton Kaidos 2 or Boton Kaidos Origins, as it was released in the West. That was also on this HD collection, which came out just last year. That game is infamous for one particular item being the shampoo, where they say, try out our shampoo, in 2 weeks you will have splendid hair. They mean literally 2 weeks, as in 336 hours of game time you need to wait for this thing, because the system of this game is such that like everything in the universe of Boton Kaidos has like an essence. So you actually can like take the essence of various things, put them into these cards, and then use them later. Like if you need to put out a fire, you go to like a barrel of water, you pull out the essence of the water, and then you use it to put out the fire. But everything changes over time. Like if you get like pristine water, it becomes like stale water after a certain amount of time. And it's usually reasonable. This one is just infamous, and it makes for a 2-week long 100% speed run.
340. You know what? Y'all keep talking. I'm gonna go look up the leaderboard.
I think the funny thing, the funny thing about that is like you race to the shampoo, and then you have 2 weeks to beat the game just kind of in your spare time and do everything you can do until like kind of the point of no return.
Yeah.
With the one caveat that you have to open the menu as rarely as possible because the game time stops while you have the menu open.
Yeah. There's a lot we could say about that, but even the casual any percent of the original game is kind of infamously long. It broke the 10-hour mark in 2022, I believe. But now that the HD collection has come out, there's all sorts of boosters, there's all sorts of things that you can do to like speed the game up. Because it is a fairly slow-moving game, and its combat system, while really interesting, is at a bit of a slow pace due to the nature of having to, like, you're basically slapping down cards in a sequence, and how you sequence it determines how much damage you do. Every enemy attack is a sequence of hits on you that you can also use cards to, like, block against. And there's a lot of, like, it was one of the original tech built RPGs in a way. Because you're like each character literally uses a deck of cards, and then you want to sequence the numbers of the cards in such a way that you can maximize, like, you know, having the same number gives you a bonus. Having a sequence of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I believe the reverse sequence is slightly less effective, but like the sequence is really important, and a lot of it is just like, you know, making very quick decisions on what cards you play and how you play them. And then like this game is so weird. It has really interesting mechanics where like every character has like a set deck that you build. And then when you run out of cards, your character burns a turn shuffling. Bosses do this as well. Like it's such a novel, neat concept that's unlike anything else that I've seen before or since, and I love this game. It is. We wax poetic about Monolith, and we'll get to the next Monolith game after this. But this game's pre-rendered visuals are legitimately, I think, the best that have ever been made for a game. The art direction in this game is absolutely phenomenal. There's a section in the middle of the game in a continent called Mira, which is just one area is like a candy land. One area is like, it looks like it's cardboard cutouts, like a diorama. And then one area is like a shattered mirror effect. It is one of the, like, I have no idea how they got that to work on a GameCube. It is one of Motoi Sakuraba's best soundtracks. I know he's kind of known for being like really good or like kind of forgettable. Like this is his, like, one of his top tier soundtracks. Wow. So I'm excited for this run. I've been hoping for representation for this series because Boton Kaidos Origins was like the first, I think, RPG that truly got me to break into like RPGs as a whole after having just played like Pokemon, Mario RPG, Paper Mario, and Final Fantasy. Like this was kind of the game that really opened my eyes to the different kinds of things you can just do with RPGs. So I realize I'm probably going off a little long on this one, but it's like, for as much as people talk about the 100% speedrun, it's like, haha, 2-week-long speedrun. This game has a legitimate speedrun, and like there is a legitimately really cool RPG behind it. So I'm very excited to see this.
Yeah, I was thinking that the whole time, like seeing this get on the schedule. I was like, oh, because for most speed, like I was poking fun at it there. For most speedrunners, they know, oh, is this the game with the 337-hour speedrun? I looked it up, it's 337 hours. But like actually seeing like, no, there's actually like a very, very legit, awesome speedrun underneath all of that. And GK, screw you, man. You're trying to sell me on a card deck building based RPG combat system. You got Ghoul and I in the call here. We're both like, oh, hey, wait,
right.
What? This is like card based?
Yeah, it is not quite like
out here, what?
It is. Oh yeah. Oh, I was gonna say like because I know you spike for Kingdom Hearts. And I was like, it's very different from Chain of Memories. That's an action RPG. But like,
it is okay.
This was one of the first games of that sort alongside games like that.
Right.
And I guess Yu-Gi-Oh. It's weird because like I think of Yu-Gi-Oh as like when I think of Yu-Gi-Oh in like RPGs, I think of Falsebound Kingdom. I'm like, that's just an ogre battle clone.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
like that ties it all back together.
Yeah.
All right.
I think of it as this awful PS1 game. Forbidden is not. It's great. It's great. On we go to another one of the beloved games, I guess, of like the same era.
Beloved series. So this is Zenos Saga, our third Saga game.
God.
This franchise went really off the rails in the PS2 era. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so this is Zenos Saga Episode 2, Jenseits von Gut und Besa, I believe how you're supposed
I'm
to
so
pronounce
glad you took that. I was going to butcher it.
I'm just remembering that ESA run where we tried to get you to read like European phrases.
Oh, yeah, there was no shot. I'd like to be clear. I tried. That was not me putting on I tried. But yeah, tell us about Zenos Saga episode 2.
So Zenos Saga is one of these trilogies that's like, it had a pretty sizable, if cult fan base on the PS2. We had Zenos Saga episode 1 last year by Miss Scarlett Tanager, which was kind of nice to have like that series start to get some representation, because we had all kind of Xenoblade on the schedule in the years before, but not yet Zenos Saga representation. So this run was originally going to be on the 2020 schedule as the first Zenos Saga run of the event's history, and that sadly didn't work out. And this was set to be run by Fast at CC, our runner here, who's going to be showing it off for us in 2024. And Fast is more known for games like Mega Man 3 is an absolute just like beast at speedrunning Mega Man 3, and a whole bunch of like Mega Man games as well.
Making Zelda
as well
1,
as games
he's
like
really,
Zelda
really good
1,
in. Yeah.
Hollow Knight. I've, as somebody who's been in his stream a few times, he really does like RPGs quite a lot. He likes talking about them. And so this was kind of his like RPG pet project of like a game that he's put in a ton of work to like route out and run and like really optimize. It's kind of the dark horse of the trilogy. But that doesn't mean that like the speed run is any less interesting. Like there's a lot of interesting tech to this run. So I'm really excited to see this one.
Yeah, I will watch. I am a Fast at CC fan. I will watch this man speedrun basically anything. Like you said, Zelda 1, Mega Man 3, Hollow Knight he's put a ton of time into. And this goes back many years he's been working on this project. So cool to see him finally get out to an RPG limit break and get to showcase one of his favorite RPGs. I'm sure it's going to be a really, really good time. Mm-hmm. Cool, we're going to kick it over to you to talk a little bit about Indivisible as we go through Tuesday night.
Yeah, so Indivisible is kind of one of my favorite indie RPGs of all time. So this was basically the Skullgirls developers made a Valkyrie profile clone.
Cool.
But like the movement in this game, the way it animates, it's gorgeous to watch. Just tons of like beautiful hand-drawn animation everywhere. The character designs are incredible, and I can't say enough good things about the movement, the combat, and I believe this run is actually like decently glitchy as well. I think there's like out of bounces and skips and tricks, and it plays a lot like a Metroidvania in a way. Ajna gets like power-ups and things she can do over the course of the game that change, and all of this kind of boils together into this RPG that just like continues to build on itself, and it's such a great watch. And this game came out, I don't even want to think how long ago, like 5 or 6 years ago now.
2019.
And, yep.
Pretty recent, yep.
Oh, I don't know if 5 years is recent.
5 years is a lot in indie RPG time.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
I was saying for
we
indie,
went through a pandemic.
but like, yeah, like all that stuff, and it's a game I've wanted to see on the schedule basically since it released, and to finally see it, get its showcase and its chance to really show off what this run is and how cool it can be. I'm super, super excited. You will see me on the couch or not on the couch, but in the audience for this one.
I was like, I didn't know you knew that much.
No. I meant the
developer of this game. You will see me.
I meant the what is it? The GDQ, the couch's couch where you sit behind the couch on the couch.
Oh yeah, the B couch. Yeah,
the B couch. Yeah. That's where I'm going to be for this one. So.
I was like when they make like the C couch. They're like bunching a bunch of chairs up and everything. Yeah.
And I'm personally just happy to see this one get in because Norimaki is a really cool fella. I first met him like in SGDQ 2017, and we like briefly roomed together. So just a very nice person. I'm really happy to see him get to show something. I believe he was like a part of the Earthbound speedrun community at one point. And so I want to say he was at Limit Break 2017, but I might be misremembering. But yeah, just kind of some associations there. I'm happy to see him get a run in the event. I know he's tried with this game a few times.
Sounds like another awesome speedrun. I look forward to seeing Ghoul on one of the lettered couches watching this run. And yeah, should just be a good time. Looks like a nice mix of a bunch of different qualities that make for a good speed run. And that kind of goes right into our next one here with Super Mario RPG Remake. Now, the original Super Mario RPG, a beloved video game and one of the more respected RPG speedruns, I think, of all time. So many things going on between all the movement you've got on the isometric field, between all of the intense menuing, and trying to time all of those various blocks and attacks, including the dreaded super jumps, the 100 super jumps in a row to even make the run work. Well, Ice Blue's going to be bringing you the remake. And I got to tell you, as someone who loved the original so much, I'm so impressed what they were able to do with the remake to update it and not just say, here's Super Mario RPG with a new coat of paint. It is genuinely such a different speedrun on the remake with all of these different mechanics they've added to it, between the almost like Chrono Trigger like triple techs that you can do in it with different party compositions, the different meter that you can build up to release that, trying to chain all of your attacks together that give you percentage damage and defensive buffs throughout the whole run. It's such a cool run, and it's gotten to the point where it's even faster than the original, which on more modern, you're on the Switch, you're playing on a potato at this point. Like, the fact that that's even faster than the SNES version, absolutely incredible. Ice Blue's been putting a ton of time into this, as many of us here in the community are. I will also be on one of the lettered couches getting to watch this run unfold for you all there on Tuesday night. So,
yeah, and then we get to finally close it off with a game that needs no introduction.
No.
Final Fantasy VII, but a category that might need a little bit of introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So, run by Creative Ellie, just genuinely great individual with the community. Runner of both Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. So he's going to be bringing to us all weapons. Now, that doesn't mean every single equipable weapon. That what he means is all of the weapon bosses. So Diamond, Ruby, Emerald, the infamous like super bosses that gatekeep this game. This is going to be on the PC, and if you've ever seen a PC run of this game, you'll know what you're in for. If you haven't, I actually have a clip for you. This is one that we that I got one of the clips for. Let's see.
Yeah, because
I had like cataloged the wrong East 8 clip, and I had to dig for it a second ago, so I want to make sure I have it in the right folder here. So none of this is supposed to happen. This is all like some debug room shenanigans that you get into. This is some jank.
This is how I remember Final Fantasy VII going. You know.
Oh my god. Wow, those are some names. You can donate to maybe name these characters. I don't know.
I love all the just garbled text. Yeah, there's still a lot of like interesting stuff for the Midgar portion of the run in terms of like routing and like glitches and stuff too. But like when the PC run opens up, it becomes some real shenaniganry. So here we're fighting the diamond weapon, which is the easiest of the bunch, and so it's weak to bolt, and so they're just gonna like, so I believe Ellie does like a double cast on bolt 3, which just does a ton of damage.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of a category like this. I love that it's kind of like E8, how we had talked about earlier, allowing for like an all story bosses speedrun sort of facilitates a way to showcase all the glitchiness. As you can see, this game is a little broken. Just
oh, it gets even better. Like so he just absolutely destroyed. Like just 2 hours in, he destroyed a boss you're supposed to fight in like 6 hours in of a normal speedrun. This cutscene is not supposed to play after this fight, so just watch. Red 13 drops an amazing line here.
God, what are the real HP numbers? It's so... Oh, that's just their names behind it.
The names are behind them, yeah.
Something's wrong. And that was where I chose to cut it. Alrighty.
It's... And like Spike said, you know, we've shown the glitched PC 80% version of the run before, but when you do a run like this, you do have the opportunity to say, this game is broken, but here is the cool things you can do when you start breaking the game, and not just how fast can you beat the game.
Right.
Sure, we're facilitating beating the game quickly, but what else can we really, really do with this? We start digging in, and it's so fun to watch these runs. And just the sheer ridiculousness.
It's such a creative category to do it in. Something's wrong, dude. It's saying like, all right, let's not even mess with all the story bosses. No. We can get overpowered so fast. Give me all the super bosses. These are the things that everybody remembers. Like, oh, if you don't have the perfect party and materia setup, you can never do it. Well, Eli is going to be doing all of them in the course of 3 hours here at RPG Limit Break to close out Tuesday night. So super, super cool. Into another beloved RPG series. I'm a broken record. I say this about all of them. Shin Megami Tensei, the V, that stands for 5 in Roman numerals. Ghoul, tell us a little bit about this one. I think you like this series a little bit.
The V does not stand for vengeance, by the way. That's going to be like 2 weeks after this run.
It's also a little unfortunate that we actually don't have access to that version if they don't patch anything. But so this is Shin Megami Tensei 5. I absolutely adore this game and this series. So if you haven't played any of these games, this is like if Pokemon hated you.
Such a good
This
description.
is if Pokemon hated you. There's your sales pitch.
It's these super difficult, really complicated and deep turn-based RPGs. But this run in itself is also really interesting because there's a ton of glitches. They're skipping bosses. And while you're doing this, you also, because of the way this game works, levels matter a lot in this game. And so we have to find ways of getting these levels quickly so we can fight these bosses. And the true neutral ending means that we have to actually go all the way to what is effectively the game's super boss and fight and defeat that, which is like a level 96 boss. I forget what exactly the level is on him. And you have to get all the way there in this run, and it's so much fun. The graphics of the game look incredible. The voice acting is so good. I cannot say enough good things about this game in this series. And we have Freedom Pulse and Shaggy, who are just fantastic commentators, super passionate about these. I've had the opportunity to interact with both of them due to running the SMT marathon, and they're just super interesting, entertaining people to listen to talk. And so you have this great background with this super deep, complicated RPG, but you also have this will have a great dynamic from these two co-op runners as they explain exactly why we're doing all of these crazy things that we're doing to get there.
Yeah, so I actually have a clip for this run as well. Just kind of how it worked out. So this is actually the Ishtar boss fight. Shoutouts to my girl Estelle as the split girl for Freedom Pulse's stream here. So I kind of was asking him like what parts of the run we want to show off, and he said either the super boss or this is the Ishtar fight about halfway through the run. And kind of one of the interesting things about this particular boss fight. So the boss has Hama-On, which is a skill that can one-hit kill you. So the way he's structured his party is he has 2 characters with really good dark skills, which is what the boss is weak to. And if you know anything about the press turn system in SMT, anytime you hit something with a weakness, it only uses half of a turn. So he has it structured to where it's like he'll use a dark skill to use half a turn, and then he'll have another character use that half of turn doing some sort of setup or support skill, and then he'll have the next character do it. So he effectively gets 8 turns out of his 4 press turns. And he has them sequenced in like a way that enables that, because it's like the characters go in order vertically. And then all of his characters have like various different ways to deal with the boss's Hama-On skill, which can one-shot you. And then we're going to see something kind of interesting at the end here. Just like what this really gets into is just the different types of stuff that you do in any given like SMT run. Like this run is a little bit less. This showcase here is a little bit less of execution and more of just the strats behind it. Because like this boss has 8 turns. Like she gets 8 press turns, and he just negates all of them by like reflecting the boss's skill back because of how the press turn system works. Like if you can't get a hit off, you are punished severely for it. In this,
but I love that sort of stuff. Like you say, like it's not so much like execution as it is like strategy and whatnot. But like for so many people, like I know for me, like I barely read anything. Like you understand on such an elementary level, like any of these RPG combat systems, understanding it well enough to where yes, this boss is going to get 8 turns, 8 actions here. They're going to get none of them just by fully having that kind of showcasing a master class of when you know how to delve into the system, what sort of things you can cause.
Mm-hmm. So there's like basically, using those half turns to set up like the the Tarukaja attack buffs, because in SMT, use buffs is like the first strat. If you're ever having a difficulty with this game and you're not super familiar with how SMT works, people will, and you ask somebody for help, they'll say, did you use buffs? Did you use debuffs? If the answer is no, that is where you start. So he sets up a dampener here, which just reflects the boss's Mahamon, which just would insta-kill everyone in the party. And then he's going to switch over, and then he's built up this meter called Magatsuhi. And then one of the things you can use is this skill called Omagatoki, which is Omagatoki Luck, which is if you finish the fight on the turn that you use this skill, which he does here, you get extra, I think you get double EXP and like quadruple money. So like, that is why that's so important. It's like he calculated the damage, got the boss low, and then instead of using like the free crits that the Magatsuhi gives you, he routes in like, we're gonna kill this boss this turn so that we get more EXP. Like that's how tight, routing of these kinds of games can be.
Yeah, that's so. I love the routing aspect of any of these runs. That like, I hear something like quadruple money. Oh, that's probably what that allows for the route afterwards is so much more important than the optimization of ending that fight at a certain time. That's cool.
Anybody that's played a significant amount of SMT knows the first thing you learn is buffs are crazy. The second thing you learn is that money is power in those games. The more money you have to use the Demon Compendium means you have more options, which means that you're going to be much more powerful to take on higher level bosses. I legitimately cannot say enough cool things about like the sheer depth of these games and the way the combat system plays out. That fight, it showcases just how interesting the press turn system can be with reflection, but that's not all there is to it. You're not just negating what your opponent's doing, and there are situations where if you miss, it's so punishing, and you have to react to that because it's very possible. I love these games so much.
So I'll be like, talk about this for 6 hours if we wanted, and we will talk. We won't be talking about it for 6 hours. Again, shouts to I don't know.
Ghoul might if he ends up couching or hosting.
Yeah, you might.
Well, you might hear me a little bit on this one for sure, in some form or fashion. I'll be around for this one.
Yeah, make sure to check that one out. It should be Tuesday, early in the morning, Wednesday early in the morning. Shin Megami Tensei 5. Pretty cool looking speed run. After that, we got another awesome looking speed run. This one, like a kind of a graphical and whatnot shift. We got Moon Remix RPG Adventure. I believe it is originally like a PS1 game. Watching it for me, it almost gives me like Sega Game Gear nostalgia, with just like the tiny screen and everything. The one-on-one RPG combat. GK, you were about to say something, I think.
Yeah, actually. When you get into it. So this game actually has a really fascinating little backstory. This game released in 1997. It was kind of an interesting game, and like, from what I understand, like the story is about like the hero turned evil, and so like you're playing as like a character trying to deal with what they're doing. And it was a huge inspiration in terms of concept for a little game you might not have heard of that released in 2015 called Undertale. There's a lot of different little things that have influenced Undertale, but like the concept I know fascinated Toby Fox to the point like he incorporated some of the ideas that he knew with that game into the creation of Undertale. So like it's a Japan only game until 2020. It got a remake in 2019 after I think being in some sort of like rights kind of purgatory. And after like he shouted it out, the publishers actually got like several people asking them like, can you release this game, in the West in English? And so it is in fact available in English now.
Nice.
So yeah, it's definitely kind of like one of those games. It's like, it's not necessarily a game a whole lot of people know about, but like it has kind of influence in like, the RPG scene ever since its release. It's influenced a lot of Japanese RPGs as well, from what I understand. And it's kind of like one of those neat runs. It's like you might not have heard of, but it's got some really cool things to show off.
Yeah, I like the graphics for it are super clean. It's got another awesome looking OST, very just cute looking game. And another just awesome shouts to Remote Runners getting to be a part of the event here with Tekken. I believe I'm saying that right. Getting to showcase it. Tekken,
Yeah,
Tekken.
I believe it'd be Techon.
Techon, okay.
One of our 4 Japanese runners we have for this event. So that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
although we are doing this in the English version, so just to note.
Yeah. That's always good. We are primarily a Western audience we have here for RPG Limit Break. Anytime it's nice to get to put those into English. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And then GK, I'm going to hand it off to you here for the next couple. We got another Trails game.
Yep. So okay, wouldn't know anything about these.
Shut the heck up. So Trails in the Sky the Third, the final game of the Sky trilogy. It's a very different game in the series. I don't think anything in the series has really done what this game does. There's a little bit of traces of it in Reverie, but like what it is it's kind of like, I don't know if you're like familiar with visual novel terms. There's a thing called a fan disc. It's kind of like if they made that, but they made it an RPG and then also made it canon. So it's kind of like a follow-up to the Trails in the Sky duology. Like what has been going on in the lives of these characters in the last year. But then also like, unlike that game where it's like you go around the world, doing little quests, and you go to a new town, you do a set of quests, more of the plot develops, and then it kind of escalates into the game's final act. This game is a one of those deals where it's like more of a dungeon crawlery for most of the run. There's unlike the other games where you're usually locked into a set amount of characters, this one you have 16 available party members. So there's a lot of routing around that. Sometimes you're forced into certain parties. The final section of the game, you have 4 sets of 4 characters. And you have to kind of design your party setups around each individual portion of the end game. There's been a ton of route changes in this category in the last couple of years. I miss when 16 was a lot in Trails. Shut up, Tom. If you've seen the cast size of Reverie, it is like it makes Sky the Third look like Final Fantasy X.
Right.
Final Fantasy X-2, I should say, which only has 3. But yeah, it's a cool group. We've had them on the channel a few times recently if you haven't seen them, but yeah, there's been a lot of changes to this route, and it's a lot more like there is still cutscenes and stuff, but like there's a lot more like dungeon routing around it, a lot of fascinating little tricks and strats, and then also just like, I don't know, the story of this game, just one of my favorites in any game ever. Very dark in a lot of places, but it has kind of like its really cool themes that I kind of like the way that they tie into the marathon. But next up, speaking of games with a lot of characters and a lot of scenarios, is Live Alive. So this game was like a 1994 Squaresoft experimental RPG.
Yes.
There's 7 like choosable scenarios that have wildly different types of like ideas. Like one of them is like a fighting game. It's modeled after Street Fighter, where you do like a series of like fights. It's kind of like a Street Fighter type game, like Street Fighter story mode. You have one that's like an old Western type movie where a Rough Rider comes in, there's a town, like he goes to this old Western town. They don't like him at first, but then like he kind of warms up to everyone, and then like there's supposed to be like an assault on their old Western town, and they have to set up a bunch of traps and then like ward off all these like bandits trying to mess up the town. There's one that's like themed around like Alien, which doesn't have a ton of combat, but just conceptually it's super interesting. It is a very avant-garde game for the time, and it finally got a remake in 2022, which made it a lot faster than the SNES version. That run I think is like almost 6 hours. This version can be done at about 340 something.
Oh wow.
I know Bramhall was really excited to see this one get into the event, so I'm happy to see that it got in. It's going to be all of the like 7 main scenarios, and then the scenario that follows all of that up, and then like the final boss. Like, it's a really weird game, but it's got a lot of interesting strats and routing, a lot of just variety of gameplay. It was also, I believe, the first RPG that was fully scored by Yoko Shimomura, and it's one of the best. So,
yeah, she's pretty good at making those OSTs. That definitely perked my ears up a little bit. That's awesome to see. I know, like, again, I have not seen it myself. I know all the different scenarios. So this is another one of those awesome 90s RP that when they announced it was getting the remake, the re-release here in the modern day, people were popping off.
Yeah, the SNES is kind of interesting in that, like, there's a lot of, like, super nostalgic SNES RPGs. Square was cooking in that era.
Yes.
And there is kind of like an exhaustible resource of, like, number of SNES RPGs that we can really show off at Limit Break. But we're getting actually 2, I think, really interesting ones that we haven't yet shown. Actually, I would say 3, because we have Romantic Saga 2 as well, remaster. But we get Live Alive, we're getting the remaster, but we are getting, like, this, you know, cult classic SNES RPG. And then we're going to get, we'll have another one that we'll be talking about later that's a bit more infamous. So, but that's just a really cool thing to kind of see. And then another, I guess, big FF on the schedule.
Yeah, big FF. We got Fantasy 10, which, that's the next, like, 3 days. It's actually only 3.5 hours. I don't do FF10 since we did the, like, 87 player co-op run we did years ago.
We had a task.
We had an AI task.
That's what it was. I thought it actually was it last year. I wasn't sure. Yeah. But yeah, we have Final Fantasy with the cutscene remover with the RNG fix. I'm assuming they make it to where, because I know a big thing in this run is that they try to get the a weapon or a piece of armor or whatever it might be that just removes all encounters. So by having the RNG fix here, I'm assuming it's to make sure they're going to be able to get that. Because, when you just block out all random encounters for the last hour or so of the run, it saves a lot of time, believe it or not. But yeah, I think the inclusion of the cutscene removers, there's a lot of, I think when you're watching RPG speedruns that you like to be able to see the story unfold as well, like have all these memories and whatnot. But sometimes you got a game like Final Fantasy X where, like, well, it's that or it's 10 hours long. So this is a nice way to get to just represent the strategies of the speedrun itself and get to kind of move along with that. And all of a sudden you're, halfway across the world of Final Fantasy X in like an hour and a half. It's incredible.
We got to comment in chat. The RNG fix actually makes the run more random.
Oh, is that what it does? Oh, that's completely not how I would have interpreted that.
Yeah, I believe there's, like, separation of the two, because, like, the cutscene remover is a fan community thing to,
right.
Adjust for the game. And so there's a lot of jank that can happen with, how you manipulate runs and stuff in doing that.
Oh, that's so funny. It's like, no, we're injecting more randomness into it all the time.
But I mean, that's a good thing in this case, potentially too, though, because, like, in that situation, now the runner isn't just, they're not able to follow the script. They have to make decisions and react to what is happening within the game. And it's kind of cool seeing this cutscene the cutscene remover end up actually, like, develop over time. I remember when this was first, like, being developed, it was like kind of this, like, cool thing. It's like, oh man, I can't even be really exciting when this, it would be so good. We see FF10 and a lot more community events when it's not, a 9-10 hour commitment, complete with a 15-minute, shower sequence.
Yes. To be clear what cool means by that, infamous Karakarn, longtime speedrunner of the Final Fantasy games, literally there is a cutscene in the original FF10 that is long enough to where he took a shower in the middle of a world record attempt during this cutscene because they just had the time. You can go make a sandwich during this. The makeout scene is so long. It's unreal. But it's a beautifully done sequence. But other than that, like, it's just cool to see Final Fantasy X showcased here. You get to focus a lot more on just how busted you can make the sphere grid system, how you can jump around and make Bahamut just walk around and, like, Mike Tyson's punch out everything, all the bosses in the last, like, third of the run. It's very, very cool. Yep.
Now we're on to our next saga.
This series is one of the weirdest series I've ever heard of. We went into space. Now we're a bunch of mice and rats and kind of forest critters in this. It's a really neat game. This has some of the best 2D sprite work I think I've ever seen in an indie RPG. I mean, it's very clearly like, sprite based, but they're so detailed. There's so much like character communicated in these sprites. And this glitchless run, the more I went and did some research for this, I don't know what Moonblaze Wolf is on, but they just keep finding these awesome indie RPGs. If they keep finding them, they're going to keep showing up in the event, because this is just, it's awesome. Like, there's, you play these like little mice, and they can pick up like these weapons that are just like little household objects. One of them uses like an X-Acto knife as a weapon, which is like super cool. And it's like, I've heard amazing things about this game. I can't wait to see the speedrun actually be showcased. It's one of those runs that like, we used to always talk about how when we were watching, in our schedule discussions, like, oh, this is a game when I saw it, I wanted to play it. And when I started watching this run, I just wanted to play the game. I didn't actually even want to watch the run anymore, because the game itself looks so much like it was so much fun. So it should be a super, super fun watch. Very quick for a glitchless run as well. So I'm sure we're going to do some cool stuff with this.
At first, I saw the name Small Slug, and I'm like, does that mean that it's a short game? I was like, is that what it's referencing? It's like, oh no, it's more about like critters and stuff.
Yeah, Moonblaze Wolf, one of a couple runs that they're going to get to represent here at RPG Limit Break 2024. That completes the Wednesday set of games. And gamers, this has been an awesome show so far, getting to talk about all these different runs that are going to be coming your way this May at RPG Limit Break 2024. We got 3 days left, but we're going to take a small little break, couple minutes. Make sure to get up, stand, stretch. Make sure to stay hydrated during this show. When we come back, get excited, because we're going to be talking about amazing speedruns of all sorts of different RPGs, including Virtual Highlight. We'll see y'all in just a little bit. And welcome back, everyone. I hope we all were able to stand up, do a little bit of stretching, do some hydrating. Oh, water. Whoever came up with the concept of water, you did great. It tastes delicious every single time. But, as refreshing as that is, I can't think of anything that represents my thought of the word doo-doo fard more than this next game on the schedule that we get to talk about. Being run by MechaLink, we have got Virtual Highlight.
So let's start with this on this one. I was looking, there was a tweet the other day, and it was talking about how much Saturn games are getting more expensive over time. And they're at a used game store, and they're scrolling through all the Saturn games, and one of the ones they went over was Virtual Highlight. And the price tag on this game was $90 at this used game store, which means you'd be paying approximately about $15 per frame of this game that you would be seeing.
This is the only game I've ever seen that looks worse in person than it does on capture feeds.
Right. It actually deafens how awful it looks in a way. It's so bizarre.
I actually get motion sick watching this on a CRT somehow, which I don't when I watch a capture feed of it. It is the worst looking game I have ever seen, bar none, and I have no idea how.
So from what I understand, this game was actually originally built on a golf engine.
What? Oh,
yeah. It's like on the Golden Tee engine.
Oh my god.
Let me get the clip. So I just have 2 minutes of just this game being played.
Oh, please,
just
God.
I am not slowing this down. This load legitimately takes a solid 10 seconds. This dungeon looks like
I think my favorite thing about this game is that the game lags so badly that in order to actually aim your turns, they go into the pause menu and look at the map and use that to do their turns rather than actually try to control it while playing the video game.
Oh my god, dude. We have been around speedrunning and marathons of speedrunning for well over 10 years now. We're coming up on close to 15 years at this point. Some of the hardest I have ever laughed was watching this run at a limit break maybe 7-8 years ago. I've been Gyre running it, I want to say. And I've never laughed so hard at a speedrun in my entire life. I cannot believe what this game is this is mid 90s. They were just trying anything.
Yeah, I asked Mecha to send me some heights, and they sent me a few different sections of the run. I picked this one because this illustrates the whole opening the menu to turn around. Just like every part they sent me of like just different sections of this game is just opening the menu to turn around because it's faster than just.
No, it's not that it's faster. It's that you can't aim because if you hit the left thing, you don't know how many frames you're going to be holding left for because it's so variable. So that if you do that, you can turn too far and miss your turn.
Oh my god, did they clip through the wall at the end? It's like so hard to like, it's so doo-doo far.
I love that I asked a bunch of people to send me some highlights of their clips, and like I said at the start of the stream, I didn't get everyone's just for time's sake because we're already running a little long on the show, but it's the only game where I'm being sent clips that are deliberately to show off as bad as possible. Which allows us to segue into the next run, which is the Zenos Saga, which is another one of those like SNES RPGs. They're going to be running on the Japanese version of the game just because it's like half the length. This is one of those really nostalgic SNES RPGs that is known for being a really mean game. I have a clip for this one as well.
Oh, heck yeah.
Part of the reason we don't have audio for these clips is that there's definitely bits and pieces of the runner saying language that probably wouldn't repeat on the stream.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
But the clip I was sent was the only time that like the runner actually specifically said probably don't want to play audio because there's swearing in this clip.
That's some choice words about Zenos Saga during this clip.
Yeah, so from what I understand in this run, you deliberately have one of your characters dead for a lot of the run. So you're just trying to run away. It's like there's like a 50-50 chance of dodging and like a 66% chance of running away. And it's just the game is just not cooperating. This is like the top run on SRCom's leaderboard for the record. No. It's not Darch's PB. I believe their PB is like a 338, but like their best recorded run is like a 349, and just getting absolutely shafted.
Oh, like, dumpstered! Oh no!
Like we just fast forward a little bit further into the run. So they just get into this encounter, just constantly trying to run away. So they're able to run away. How
many coin flips and 2 out of 3s have they lost in a row? Oh my god,
just a lot. So this is where things get a little crazy. Okay, so I believe this is to like increase the chances of a not unfavorable outcome. Just takes 2/3 of their health instantly. Able to dodge, runs away.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
This game is so unbelievably mean. Alright, so goes in, does a heal. He's trying to run away, like gets into another encounter, trying to run away. So raises this, I believe this is to raise evasion. Raise the chances of survival. 192 damage. Instantly one shot. Most of these clips we asked for highlights to show how like cool this run is, like the routing into certain fights, the like tech that you demonstrate. We got to start this off. Here's a thing that shows off how bad this game runs, and here's a thing about how mean this game is. Raises agility, which increases evasion and run chances. Thank you, High Spirits, for getting me the details on that.
That's what it is. Okay. It's like
the submission video has a death. Like that's the kind of mean we're talking about. Oh my god, a Zenos Saga song is playing on the stream.
Not to self-promote or anything, but I am doing SNES Mania on my channel where I'm playing through all the Super Nintendo games. And I asked everyone, like, what games are you looking forward to, you know, that are good? And what games are you looking forward to that are going to make me cry? And 80% of the responses were like, Seven Saga is going to dumpster you, bro. Like, it's going to be so bad. I've heard the English version of this is even worse in some ways. So, yeah, just one of the absolute most brutal RPGs of all time going to be coming your way Thursday morning. The Seven Saga by the one and only Dragon Dart. Best of luck to them. Just Godspeed. So, and with that, we move into the early morning part of Thursday. We got Return to Krondor.
Yeah, so this is a excuse me. This is a game by Sierra Studios, known for like King's Quest, Quest for Glory. So it's got like that kind of like really late '90s kind of PC CRPG nostalgia. It's based on the Midkemia series, which was it's kind of like an alternative to D&D, kind of, you know, medieval RPG fantasy inspired by like pen and paper games. So it's got a lot of that like nostalgia for those, you know, really old school kind of early 3D action CRPGs with like the fixed camera angles. It also has a lot of like really janky little, you know, skips that you see in a lot of these games, like quick save abuse to like bypass NPCs and like get around. So like this run is pretty quick for what it is. It's kind of one of those funny little things you note with Western RPGs. We'll get into that like when we get to Ultima is just kind of, these are old school, so they naturally tend to be quicker. But when we get to Baldur's Gate later, just one of those things you love about Western RPGs is compared to JRPGs, they are fast.
They're so fast.
If you're just going to the end.
So, I don't know how to segue into this one.
I'd say, speaking of fast RPGs.
Speaking of incredibly fast RPGs, Gould, do you know anything about this 9-hour bomb that is finally getting showcased here at RPG Limit Break?
So this is my second favorite game of all time. I'm sure nobody that knows me knows this. This is Persona 4 Golden. This is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting JRPG speedruns of all time that has never had a chance to be showcased, just because the game is very long. Like, there's just no two ways about it. You have to get through a lot of segments of the run that are progressing story that don't have a lot of action, but the sheer amount of things that this game has that you would want from an RPG speedrun. You get to follow the entire story of an incredibly beloved game and incredibly beloved series. This is Persona's debut in the marathon. You get to see all of the amazing combat and strategy decisions that go into that. The bosses in this run are genuinely really interesting. There's so much going on for every single one of them. There's manipulating health values and trying to survive bosses that, you know, two-shot you almost. And there's decisions on routing and how to get to the right levels. And then, not, you know, it's been a while now, but the game is now RNG manipulated. So there's how many things can we make the game give us to make the game go faster? And all that goes into that. So we have a very deep understanding of this game under the hood, which is really rare for a game this recent to have the amount of depth and understanding that is there for this game. It's for a game that is as long as it is, as difficult as it is, and, you know, as complicated as it is, this is one of the most developed RPGs, I think, of all time as a speedrun. It's incredible, and Brooke is going to do an incredible job of showcasing this run. And I cannot say enough good things about this. If you have any tangential interest in Persona as a whole, this is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so one thing that's really common with the speedruns of this is, unlike mainline SMT, typically towards the end of the run, your party members just kind of become like item and buff fodder. So you're really just running with MC, trying to do as much as you can. So it's like, it's really tense, just like, you know, if you like, you have to plan out your turns and like respond to everything, you know, quickly, but also like safely, because a lot can go wrong. Like Ghoul says it's manipulated, but the game's RNG is like really complicated in some very weird ways. So the manipulations tend to be for things like getting the game's equivalent of the metal slime or the golden hand.
Yeah.
To like optimize getting your stats up, because MC stats are really important, especially because you won't be doing any of the social links, so you won't, well, apart from one of the incentives, but of course we had to do that one. But yeah, the social links aren't going to be doing anything for like fusions, so you really have to have your like strategy and routing and decision making down, and like one false move and a lot of things can go wrong in a hurry.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then like you said, because of the way the game works, when you do your grinding, you actually solo grind because the way it works is you split your EXP apart with your party. So if you do it by yourself, you get all of the EXP on the main character. Well, now you have to beat the final boss of a very difficult RPG casually on what's effectively the hardest difficulty. The difference between hard and very hard does not matter at all for the actual combat decisions. And the way that it gets navigated is so cool and so interesting. And if you want to have some fun with the incentives, there will be a social link. And definitely donate for Risei because that also wastes the most time.
Oh, don't do that.
That's what we want to hear in an RPG or a speedrun marathon. Let's go.
Nah.
It would also just be funny, because the way Risei social link works is she'll pop in the middle of combat to try to give you buffs or heal you and do a bunch of random things that change how the stuff is going to work. I've actually done testing to see if it was somehow faster because she could in theory give you double charge randomly. She never does it when you want her to.
No. It's almost always just going to be a time waster. Yeah.
But it's very funny.
Well, then I want to see that.
Best girl Yukiko. Vote for that. All right. Going from the longest thing of the schedule to, I believe, the shortest.
Yeah, I believe these are the shortest. Certainly some of the shortest runs, along with Baldur's Gate and a few others, like Fire Emblem's Three Houses right now, or Fire Emblem 3 Houses and whatnot. I like anytime we do kind of little mini series runs that GDQs, Limit Breaks have done in the past. We got Ultima 2, Revenge of the Enchantress, and Ultima 3, Exodus being done back to back by Organ Mike. I think one of the biggest things that sticks out to me about this run, it is a run that I think is an agent of chaos. Because you look at the estimates, 35 minutes, and then you go look at their PB of Ultima 2, it's a run of about 18 minutes. So nearly, almost exactly half the time of the estimate there at 35 minutes. So it kind of represents a run that, one of the oldest RPGs on the schedule, and one that represents things could go anyway. You gotta be, prepared for potentially going double your PB's worth of time. So Organ Mike getting to show off here both Ultima 2 and Ultima 3 here in prime time, back to back. I think is going to be super, super cool and super fascinating to just see how you navigate kind of one of these, before we've even established really what RPGs are in the modern sense.
Yeah, so there's a game that's sometimes affectionately called Ultima Zero that was made by the Ultima developer, which is seen as pretty much the first commercially released RPG ever that led into the Ultima series, and that kind of became the granddaddy of the entire thing, along with the Wizardry franchise. And so now we've been seeing more and more of these games show up in the Limit Break schedule. I believe we've had 1, 4, 6,
7. We had 7.
I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen 7 or 8 at some point on here, but I might also be thinking of GDQ or something. But now we have 2 and 3, so we have a lot of the franchise being shown. That was took a while before we started seeing these in here, but now we have a pretty large amount of the back catalog of the forefather of RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really cool to have. Speaking of 4, 5, and 6, on to Final Fantasy V. So I think before we touch on this one, I think the thing I'd really like to mention with this run is this is the salty run back of the marathon.
Let's go. Yep.
My man Zick, in truly one of, for everybody in the audience, everybody was on pins and needles. Anybody who didn't see the GDQ run that just went by for Zick doing this, it was the closer. And we were legitimately, and he'll tell you this himself, we were legitimately potentially moments away from is the closer of this GDQ gonna have to get mercy killed? Just an absolute nightmare scenario, locked in place, couldn't get anything done, and then 45 minutes of him and his couch trying to work together. How are they going to be able to progress the run? And truly, one of the most magical moments it then turned into, being able to push through it. I'm sure Zik will tell you it was cool that we got through it, but man, that sucked. Like, that was, I can't imagine the anxiety sitting there trying to make all that work on that antlion boss fight. Gonna come in and be able to get the salty run back, or will we get a different thing that goes wrong? I don't know. Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered. Check it out. Thursday night.
Yeah, so this, unlike the GDQ run, is actually going to be the run with the cutscenes. A little bit more to, more of a showcase of like the whole of the game. I'm looking forward to that one. It's still Pixel Remaster, so you have like the Pixel Remaster strats. And this game just has it's a really cute little game. Has one of the more interesting and then later generation defining systems with how it like really pushed the job system of the series that started off in Final Fantasy 3. We haven't seen Final Fantasy 5 and Limit Break since 2016, I think. It's been a while.
I feel like it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those games that's been in a weird spot to actually showcase, because a lot of the rooting that was done on the Super Famicom version of the game, but that version never came out in English outside of fan translations. So then you have you have the PS1 version, which not a particularly good version of the game. And then you have like the Game Boy Advance version, which has kind of its own issues. So it's kind of nice having a relatively definitive English version to be showcasing. And as a version that you can just say, hey, with no reservations whatsoever, you can buy this version of the game and play it and really, enjoy it and be able to showcase that as well. And, of all the people on here, Zik is just a fantastic human being too. We're going to have as far as anybody to handle the situation that happened at the AGDQ stage, Zik did a great job of handling it gracefully. Because I can tell you from personal experience, when you have those nightmare scenarios happen in the speed run on stage, it starts snowballing. Things start getting worse. You start being, panicking a little bit, and to handle that the way that Zik and their couch did, it's over the top, incredible stuff.
I concur. After that run, I sent because I've been there. I've closed a marathon with a run that just went worst case scenario. I went 15 minutes over estimate, and I was I'm trying to keep up appearance of professional and getting through this. We're raising money for a good cause. I'm sure people are enjoying it, but deep down inside, you're just I don't. You just feel very small in those moments. So I actually sent Zik a message and after that run. So it's a really cool run, but kind of the additional component that makes me excited is it's the run back. So, I'm sure Zik is going to be prepared. I'm sure Zik is going to be prepared to make sure that the stuff that happened doesn't happen in that extremely fringe weird scenario.
Yeah, it was something of he had a party member that died on a fight they weren't supposed to die on, and then that affected something a few hours down the line, and you were locked in place. I can't wait to watch him absolutely dumpster the antlion boss fight. I'm sure that's going to be cathartic for my man. It's going to be really good. And like you say, Ghoul, Zik is awesome. One of just my favorite people in the speedrunning community. And first of a couple runs they're going to be getting to represent here at RPG Limit Break. Now let's start moving into the Friday slate. As Ghoul, we have got Newtopia The Deuce. Tell me about it. 100% by Von Yvonne.
Yeah, so Newtopia is kind of an interesting series. First of all, TurboGrafx 16.
Yep.
How many? I didn't even know what this was until the Wii came out later. Being the naive kid I was, and actually had these on the Virtual Console. But these are kind of they're very interesting games because they're almost Zelda adjacent in a way. They're really different types of games in that regard for the schedule, but very much will fit within the schedule, the runs and schedule as a whole. And man, you do not get better commentators out there than Vonnie. You really don't. So I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, cool to see the TurboGrafx 16 representation. Half the amount of the Saturn, although part of that's virtual highlights. So I think that's a
that balances out. That's like a minus one, right?
Right, that's like that multiplies it by like 0 or something. It's really bad. Yeah, like I said, Bonnie Vaughn, one of the best commentators we have got in the Limit Break community. So super cool to see them get a showcase.
Utopia 2, the sequel to the game that has inspired every other game, including Utopia 2.
That is true. Yeah, I forgot about that very important bit of Utopia lore.
The game that definitely inspired the Legend of Zelda series, and not the other way around. Speaking of games that inspired other RPGs, so Ys 2 Chronicles, the back half of the Ys 1 and 2 duology, which those two games tend to be paired together. Unlike Ys 1, this game has a lot. Like, Ys 1 is a very famously like short, contained game that's like 4 hours casually and like 38 minutes as a speed run. 2 is about like double the length. It's a much more complicated run because you have stuff like attack magic. You have like twice the game length. You have a lot more like escort missions. The final dungeon of this game is like 40% of the run, and unlike Ys 1, where it's also 40% of the run, there it's like 40% of a like twice as long game. I know James and Frida and Pulse have been submitting this one for quite a while, so I'm happy to see this one get in now that we've done like Ys 1. And yeah, we've been kind of slowly building up like the entire Ys series. We've had Origin, Solseta 1, now 2, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 is actually coming out this fall, I believe.
I think 3 was done as well, wasn't it, at one point?
I don't remember if 3 was done. It would have been like the Genesis one.
I thought 3 on Genesis showed up at one point. That could be like one of the. We've had it
in the community showcases before. It might have been in one of the Questing for Glory, Hope, and Healing events as well.
That could be as well. Yeah.
I mean, that one's infamous. Spike, you finally got to play that one recently.
Woo, mama, did I? Woo, bump combat is tough.
That's not one of the bump combat games. That's just one of the games where you have the tiny little sword.
Oh yeah, you just got
that was the first game that was the first game they had with an attack button. They were not sure how to make it yet.
So I was going to ask, this Ys 2 is still a bumper car simulator?
Yes, you're still ramming into enemies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing, but it's going to be a cool run. Also, this game has a bomb soundtrack by the legend Yuzo Koshiro, so.
That was the one thing I did remember about Ys 3 when I played. I was like, the soundtrack was very banging. So I assume,
there were still a few tracks in that game that were composed by Koshiro, as well as Miyako Ishikawa, I think was her name. She still works for the company somehow, although she does something else. But yeah, she composed a lot of Ys 3's soundtrack. We're talking here on Ys 3. There's a whole, like, Falcom has like this sound team that just always puts out banger work. Yuzo Koshiro had worked on like the first few games before he left, and helped out Quintet with their first game, which is why ActRaiser, a game that was made by like the Ys 3 team by and large, has, his soundtrack on it. And then on to one of our second longest run, a 3-player co-op of Suikoden 2.
Yeah, and what was the game earlier we were talking about where it's like, it's got up to like 16 playable characters and everything?
Trails in the Sky.
Yeah,
this one is like 50 party members, and like that's just for combat. Like there's a whole bunch more that are like town NPCs. Like if anyone's ever played this game, you know that getting 108 stars is like, it is a guidebook project. And not only that, but it's like when you follow a guide, you tend to do things slowly. One of them is timed. So if you don't get that in like the first 12 hours, I believe, like you're SOL. This is definitely one of those, like, there's a lot to this run, but I think these runners are going to absolutely kill it. I know Zero has been one of our Suikoden runners, and he's just great commentary, great, runner, performer. We've been seeing a lot of the Suikoden runs on the channel through like the Suikothons of the last couple of years, and then just recently we had a showcase on the channel showing off various Suikoden games done by can't remember his first name. I think it's Yoshito Murayama, the scenario writer and director for several of these games, who sadly passed away last month. Another chance to kind of showcase one of the games of his creations, especially with Eiyuden coming out later this year, as well as the Suikoden and remasters, kind of like giving a little bit of new life to this series.
Absolutely. So big time looking forward to it. One of the most beloved RPGs on the PlayStation 1, which is it is not short on amazing and beloved RPGs. And I like any time we've just got a number of others. I love always seeing the co-op in parentheses next to any of these runs, because it means you're going to have a nice community aspect going on there. Commentary is always going to be able to stay up the whole time. And 8 hours of Suikoden 2 goodness. And we bounce off an 8-hour run into a 35-minute run of our newest game of the year in Baldur's Gate 3, all acts, because that's right, we need to do all of the acts just to get it up to a 35-minute estimate by Geek.
I love Western RPGs like that.
God, they're so silly.
Any percent is like 8 minutes, and that's one of our incentives, I believe, as well.
Oh yeah, you gotta throw it in. That's easy incentive. Throw it in.
It is so funny how it's like I don't know why it's like a universal thing. If it's a Western RPG, it's beatable in 30 minutes, in like 5 minutes. You could do the quote unquote all stories or all main quest thing in 35 minutes, and then like make up whatever other category if you want to actually play the video game.
Yeah, you could have, without even seeing the speedrun, you could have just plugged these estimates in. But yeah, we're gonna do Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sure there's like a 3-minute any percent. I'm sure there's like a 30. Like, you just know where they're always gonna land. Oh, what was that video game we said? Never mind. I'm not gonna go off on a tangent. But you both know what I'm talking about. The 2-minute, they like lure the thing over, they beat it up.
Two worlds.
Yes! Yes! Oh, I want to do a watch party of that right now. Can we just do it at Land Break? Anyways, Baldur's Gate 3, one of the most beloved RPGs of the last ever. Yeah, I know people who had no interest in Baldur's Gate whatsoever. My wife's been playing it nonstop for like 6 months now with people. So yeah, this was.
It really does not need an introduction, like at this point, for what the game itself is. And then this is a speedrun that's actually had like a lot of community development, obviously. And it's an interesting one too, because I'm curious how much of the story we'll get of like while this game was in early access and being worked on by people like Limit Break's own Palmer, just and so many fun people that have touched this game. So I'm excited for this one. Not that I'm not excited for every other game on the schedule in general, but. Yeah.
This is an absolutely cracked, stacked, jacked kind of Friday. We've got Baldur's Gate 3 kicking us off, going into Romance Saga 2 Remastered, Orient Sky Dragon's second run of the marathon, and our 15th Saga game being showcased here. It's cool to see all this representation for a series that, again, I had no real exposure to before really doing research here, and just all these games look fantastic. They all look super, super fast paced. This one right here, a little bit more of a top-down feel. It's got beautiful, beautiful sprite work, super, super cool looking combat all throughout it. So if you are a fan of this series and you are a fan of Orient Sky Dragon's varied skill set when it comes to all these different games, make sure to check this one out. Again, getting us into this Friday night primetime block. Into another one beloved from the 90s. We've got Earthbound here. Any percent, all photos by Octopuscle.
Yeah, so Octo has been the record holder for this game for a while. It's the first time we've done the photo category, which has seen since 2016 when Andy Perfect did it. And when Andy did it back then, they just started breaking this category, and he had a just completely different route for things. It was almost a 4-hour run. This run can be done in under 2, if I remember right. It is massively busted, but it's not as busted as the super janky any percent. It's kind of one of those hybrid, all glitches allowed, but you need to meet these many checks in this game.
The sweet spot, baby. That's right.
Yeah, you need to go to all the locations where the photographer takes a picture of you. I commentated this run for Calithon 2019 by Classic James, and it's just a treat to be a part of. I know Earthbound has been kind of a staple at Limit Break, but we're getting to see just kind of this nice mixture of the glitches that really kind of make this game interesting, as well as just all the charming little bits of Earthbound as a speed game.
And like you mentioned, this is the same category that we've done in the past, but it's been so long that, this run is an hour and a half shorter, which is like, that's a mind-blowing difference.
The percentage cut on something like that is ridiculous. Where it still has to live under this restriction, right? Of like, you gotta, like you said, go and take all the photos. Your excuse to have to go all over the map. And yet it's still this busted and this much more busted than it was years ago. Cool stuff. And now we go into one of my favorite RPGs of all time, one of my favorite games of all time, and two of my favorite people of all time. In Kingdom Hearts 2 Randomizer, all blue numbers co-op by @Zero and J Hobbs, Adam and Jeff, going to be showing off all of their Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer skills. Kingdom Hearts 2 is, no bias whatsoever, one of the coolest randomizers out there. All of the different settings that you can apply to it, all the different multipliers on things, how you can hide everything, where you can put all the different checks. And anytime you can take a randomizer and also apply a co-op to it, both of them playing the seed at the same time, sharing that information, it's really, really cool to hear the thought process of the runners come out to where, oh, okay, I'm going into this world, I picked up these things, Adam, you should be able to come over and pick up just these first few things that will cost you minimal time, because we think that will save you time in the bosses, the combat encounters that you're going to have to take on in your worlds there. All of a sudden, the two of them putting their brains and their skills together in this is incredible to watch, on top of just Kingdom Hearts 2 having an incredible combat system. They're watching it at a high level, watching the 15 to 30 different ways you can cheese bosses. You can absolutely break the combat system. Very, very exciting to watch every single time. This one's going to be a treat. Looking forward to it. Of course I am, and you all should be as well. And then we go into
Spike, real quick.
Poker. Go ahead.
I was like, what exactly is all blue numbers? As someone who maybe knows a bit about Kingdom Hearts 2 Random.
It's getting all the things. It's getting all of the things. There's going to be a designated set amount of pickups throughout the run. There's usually like between 35 and 40, depending on what the settings are. You got to pick up all the magics, all the summons, all that sort of stuff. And it is an excuse to make you have to go into all the worlds and like fight through all of them to completion effectively, until between the two of you, you have collected all of those. So it's your excuse to have to move around, but you're going to get all your fires, your blizzards, your thunders, your reflects, your friends like Chicken Little, Stitch, Genie, and all them. So it's effectively a 100% run of the seed. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then finally, we're gonna conclude with our sole Pokemon run of the event, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu Eevee. So this will be the first time we've had this game in 5 years. Well, you want to get into this because I think you were on the couch.
I was on the couch for this one when it was initially done by Oro way back in 2019. This is a super cool Pokemon run, and
love it.
Whenever I talk about like Pokemon speedrunning, a lot of times it's like, okay, what's your main, and then like, is there maybe a pivot at like the 50% mark? Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a completely different type of Pokemon speedrun because of a little restriction they put in the game that says you have to get to 50 Pokemon in order to actually like beat the video game, which now means you have to root in, okay, well, I saw these Pokemon, so I'm going to get these, and it changes, and it's cool because it's like one of the very rare Pokemon games that like encompasses the entirety of what Pokemon is about.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like, well, the combat of Pokemon is great, and like the decisions made around that are really cool, but you still are missing out on like the Pokemon and collectible aspect of Pokemon, and then you get that with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and it's so incredible. Visiting Kanto with the iconic music and locations and story that those games bring, and everything about these runs is so fun. It is one of those Pokemon speed runs that like started off kind of cool and just only developed over time to be better and better as time went along, and over 5 years, I'm sure it's developed even further past what I knew way back when I helped Oro commentate this run back in the day, and we'll have even more cool things, more knowledge to be disseminated about this.
Yeah. Yep. We even have a bid war between Pikachu and Eevee. I only have the Vaporeon here, but I would, if I had the Pikachu, I would be holding up both of them.
And it's genuinely, the routes are very different, actually, like how you basically get up to, you're building towards Starmie as your main to kind of finish off the game at the end. But like, you genuinely, like, I know just going off of the Pikachu route, you use like 4 or 5 different Pokemon to build to that point. Because you were alluding to that, Ghoul, that a lot of times it's, you find your main, you find your Nidoking or something, and you kind of run that to the end of the game. This one, you're having to piece together so many little things to get to that point, while also having to keep track of, okay, I caught a Pidgey here. That means I am going to not have to catch a Pidgey later on, but I also want to evolve this into a Pidgeotto at some point. How do I do a little bit less in Rock Tunnel? Sorry, Rick Tunnel for the Ironman fans out there. You know, just how all this comes together. It's so fun listening to the thought process of Etchy when he does runs of this. Well, a lot of people do runs of it, but I want to give special shout outs to Etchy, as this has been his passion project in the speedrunning community for years now. He's so excited to get to showcase this, and I'm happy for him that he gets to show it off. It's my favorite Pokemon speedrun. I think it's super fun to watch.
Yeah, so we actually have a clip for this one that Etchy asked Etchy to show off. This is going to be a little something. This is one of the bits of new tech that has come since the last time this was shown at Limit Break. But he wanted me to show off the. Oh, come on, DLC, you can handle this.
You got this, baby. Show us the Pokemans.
Let's see. Is this video just not loading? I'm worried. Okay, maybe this just didn't encode correctly. My apologies. Let's try this one more time. Maybe just VLC is just being a pain right now.
If it's not able to play, make sure to just go follow twitch.tv/Etchy. And they have done many runs of this. Or just also watch RPG Limit Break. We're going to show the case of this game there.
Both. Just do both.
Yeah, just do both.
Let me load up a different window. Okay, here we go. So here's one of the newer strats for this. Is it not playing? This is one of his stream clips. You'll see as being a giant pain right now.
Oh, some Victory Road strats. Let's go.
Yeah, so there's a couple of new skips in Victory Road. Let's see. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Okay, so this is a couple of the new strats that are available in Victory Road. Come on, OBS. I'm having problems with like everything now. Here we go.
Oh, it's chugging.
Yep. Might have had some encoder issues. Anyways, so one of the things that you can do in this game is you ride your Pokemon mounts, and they move at faster speeds. But like the thing about Aerodactyl, for example, is it moves at like a speed of like 26 pixels per second, I believe is how it's described. And trainers only have like a 25 wide pixel vision. So if you perfectly align yourself in a specific way, you can actually like just walk right by trainers because you bypass just the right amount of pixels to get past them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is actually some like high tech they found. Oh my gosh. And they do it. Yeah, there's one. Now you got a spinner you're going to get to avoid right here.
So that was just it. But yeah, you bypass the spinners as well. Obviously that's standard Pokemon stuff. But like that's one example of a the Victory Road like trainer skips with. There aren't a ton of these, but they do save time, and like it kind of just goes to show that this route is still developing like 6 years after this game came out.
Yeah, it's a very easy speedrun to watch and appreciate. No.
And then finally, we get to our final day.
Our finale day of the event. And we get to kick it off with our second of our 2 Mario RPGs represented in Mario and Luigi's Superstar Saga DX.
And the last game with the word Saga in there.
This Saga series just goes. Can you believe they licensed Mario for Saga?
I want to go. Y'all talk about. I want to count how many Saga games are in this.
There are 8.
There's 8. Okay.
There's 6 with the word Saga, and then 2 with Final Fantasy Legend, which is basically Saga. Real pain right now. So we have Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga DX, which is the other name for Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, which was the 3DS remake of this game. And So this is closer actually to a glitchless run of this game, because historically we've done all bosses and GDQ's done any percent a few times. I don't know if we've had an any percent run on this channel, but the any percent category of this game is you play about 45 minutes of it and then you just break the game and just get to the end. There's actually not a ton of glitches for this particular version of the game, so it effectively becomes kind of like a glitchless run. But unlike the original, the Mush Badge has been nerfed into oblivion, so you're not just spamming Chopper Bros. You have a couple of different types of Bros attacks that you use throughout the run, so just different combat strats in general. It's quite a bit of a different run, and kind of gives a new kind of spin on the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga speedrun. So Reef's also just been like grinding away at a lot of the Mario and Luigi games. He took like the record sweep in Partners in Time after those had been controlled by Snowion for like 5 or 6 years. Has been like top 5 in Bowser's Inside Story. Had him and Tonkatsu had been like fighting for record in Dream Team and Paper Jam. So like there's been a lot of activity from like the Japanese scene of the Mario and Luigi games. So I'm excited to see that continue, since we've done Dream Team, Paper Jam, and now the Superstar Saga remake back to back to back.
Super cool to see that all shown off. Those are such cool speedruns. I love that series, and get to see the remake here, like you say. And we go into a one of the more bonkers inclusions in the whole schedule. We got Zik truly representing his catalog of speedruns that he knows super well. Like, it shows Final Fantasy V, this super like classical RPG speedrun, and then wait, Ape Escape had an RPG that Zig's going to show here in Ape Quest. This game looks hilarious.
This is such a sick run, but yeah, it's like, yeah, like you said, the runs like all these classic Final Fantasies, and then just the weirdest crap you've ever heard of sometimes. So this is a PSP game actually that came out, and it is like a spin-off of Ape Escape. And I don't know how to describe this other than like RPG meets Mario Party meets something else. Like,
there's an extra spicy ingredient in there. We're not sure what it is to make the special sauce, but yeah.
There's something. I don't know if it's like some garlic or some, like butter or something. Something got mixed in here that should not have been mixed in. It feels like watching this. But like, it will be, if nothing else, it will be super entertaining, because I was watching this VOD and clicking around and trying to find things, and every time I clicked, I saw something different happening on screen. And it's like, all right, that's what we're going for here. Everything is something that's completely different. So it should be a lot of fun, should be entertaining. It's just a wacky video game that nothing made sense in as I was clicking through and trying to find just what the heck it was I was actually watching while trying to just do the research for the show. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, super looking forward to it. And again,
Zick will bring the commentary. So
yeah.
On to our special guest from this morning. Go check out that show after this if you haven't. As well as 2 other fantastic runners. We have our Dragon Warrior 4 co-op run, a long run here of generally seen as like the magnum opus of the NES RPG library, Dragon Quest 4 or Dragon Warrior 4 as we got it in the States. Run by Anatolu, who is, I think, a relative newcomer, did a run for Questing for Glory this past event. Sumdiener, who is, no stranger to RPG Limit Break, has been offering since, I think, 2018, 2019. And then the Countess, who's been offering this game since, I think, the first Limit Break. So really excited to see that get in.
Yeah, and this is such a really cool run to have as co-op, too, because if you don't know the structure of Dragon Warrior 4, we went over it a bit in the podcast, but it's split up into these 5 individual chapters. And the chapters, the first 4, don't really interact with each other. So what's going to happen is each of them is going to play one of those chapters before they get to the big finale, chapter 5, where all these different stories kind of, coalesce, and they're going to each do a part of chapter 5, as a group or whatever. But like,
it like naturally lends itself to a co-op in that regard. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and there's so they're each gonna do it, and like, so the way it works is you do these chapters with these other characters, and it's funny because you name your character and you don't even see the main character of the game until chapter 5. you play through all these individual stories, and they'll do those, and then they carry over what they did in those stories into this final chapter. And then they're going to be splitting that up because that's like the big payoff for all these like individual small stories that happen, you know. And there's some fun stuff. Each of them have like kind of different mechanics and things. There's one that you finish at level 1 because it's all about, it's a merchant, so the goal is to make money, not to actually like beat the game. Super famous like chapter of the game, but there is like a lot of interesting things you have to do to get to that point in the game. Just look
at squishy boy.
There's something funny about, because a little bit off topic, but Wexel's laughing that every time GK shows up on the stream, the plushes behind GK change. So.
Yeah, we have a Healy Slime emote here. Shoutouts to Toriyama's freaking Dragon Quest Monsters design. Rest in peace. Rest in peace to like Toriyama, and then Inomata, the more known for Tales art, but also did some Dragon Quest concept and like promo art. So
yep. Shouts to Akira Toriyama. Thank you for making me want to turn into a Super Saiyan when I was a child growing up. And super cool to see Dragon Warrior 4
wonder where's the name Vegeta in Spike Vegeta.
Yeah, believe it or not. That's not just my last name. Last name Vegeta. Yep, it's great. So looking forward to that. And again, big shout outs to one thing I just want to talk as a overall thing. I feel like in a lot of ways we were maybe not necessarily RPG limit break, but like, are we working towards like a lot more just like don't do longer runs and a lot of speedrun marathons because it takes up too much time and whatnot. I'm really glad to see like 4 or 5 different like 6 to 9 hour runs getting represented this marathon, because it's not just because they're longer doesn't mean they're still not incredible when they're done relatively fast for what they are. So Dragon Warrior 4, Persona 4, Suikoden 2, bunch of other games on there. So super cool representation. And then once again, it's like every time we do a longer run, then they're like, here's something that's 35 minutes. Fire Emblem,
here's
3
a palate
houses,
cleanser.
Aeon Frodo. And here's a little snack run all of a sudden. Aeon Frodo going to be taken down in 35 minutes. Cindered Shadows, Ashen Wolves.
Yeah, so this is the DLC for Fire Emblem 3 Houses. It's much shorter than the main game, but I believe like the main game's already had at least one showcase in the main event, if not multiple at this point. And it's very quick, but it's Fire Emblem. It's really interesting. There's a lot of strats and there's a lot of things that you do in this run, and relatively short, but it's a great showcase of what Fire Emblem speedrunning can be, which is fantastic. Really good use of the 35 minutes for sure.
Didn't have a lot of Fire Emblem offers this year, so this ends up kind of being like, this is what we get to showcase this year. It is a little something new, but on, the game that like, Awakening was the one that like really took off, but like 3 Houses, I think, kind of like was like another huge second win for the series.
Yeah, they kind of got like the Switch bump of like people playing, because like the Awakening, as much as people like that, really saved the series and brought it back into the limelight. 3 Houses was the one that was on a console people actually had
right.
a lot of the time. So it like took off there, and there was some really smart marketing that really got it big. And then through the DLC for the campaign here is genuinely really interesting and something that's worth checking out and showcasing. So definitely, I'm excited for this for multiple reasons. I'll put it that way.
Right. That's understandable.
There's one reason on there that is like less obvious.
But then we get to build up to, I love when anytime one of our last friends get to have a bid war here, Claude or Rena, for Star Ocean, the second story, our penultimate run of this marathon by Gearless Robot.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to note with this. Somehow, like, we've had 3 Star Ocean runs in Limit Breaks past. We had the remake of Star Ocean 1, Star Ocean 3 in like 2017, and then Star Ocean 4 in 2019. The thing about this series is it has a lot of fans, but definitely like a lot of the games in this series have some degree of contention for whatever. Like 4's, voice acting, 3's plot twist, and then 1 being like kind of older, so it's a little on the simpler side. 2 is, I think, like the least controversial game. Like this is the one that like when people became Star Ocean fans, most of them became fans because of this game, and so now it is finally like getting to be shown in the event. It had historically been like the longest of that set of games, and at like 5.5 hour typical estimate. So the fact that this is under 2 hours, because the remake's ability to like go fast, I believe skip cutscenes and stuff like that, has really cut this down. The other story I think that's kind of interesting is Gearless has been offering this since I think literally the first Limit Break. Like every time without
pretty
fail,
much.
it's been, you know, the original version of this game, and now that it's finally been like remade, it's easier to fit a 2 hour run than a 5.5 hour run. Not only gets it into the marathon, but it is the penultimate run of the marathon. I think that's super cool.
That's some other stuff
that develop.
This is one of the best looking remakes of any RPG ever, too. Like it really takes that like HD 2D style in a way and just makes it gorgeous. This game is stunning in motion. So yeah, I'm again, I say it all the time, I'm excited for this one too. There are like, shocker, the schedule's incredible for this event, and this is just another showcase of why it is so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not gonna like be there watching every single run because we have to sleep on the event. We're usually volunteers, but like a lot of us like to check out the VODs of these runs afterwards. And I always encourage you, check out on our YouTube channel, or you know, our highlights on our Limit Break Twitch channel. Like we have all the runs. So if you miss any of these runs, you're like, oh, I want to see this one, but I can't right now. The VODs end up just being uploaded. So I encourage you to check that out, and especially in the time between events. If you're not able to catch any of these runs, because a lot of people put a lot of work into these runs, and it's always kind of sad when it's like, I want to catch this, but I can't.
But now we only have one run remaining to talk about. We have got, in a lot of ways, we've said multiple times about different games, like the granddaddy of RPGs, speedrunning, the older RPGs. Final Fantasy IV, I always think of, if I'm trying to think of a game that just makes me think of RPG Limit Break, it's FF4. This is a game that so many people have run over the years. So many people deeply involved in RPG Limit Break have done over the years. And one of the first runs I always think about was that 4-player race that we got to do, that super ambitious, 3.5 hour race between 4 of the best runners in the game of FF4. And now one of them, the very best in FF4, any percent no 64 category, Rivers McCown, back to close out RPG Limit Break 2024.
Yeah, so FF4 is, I mean, what else can you say? Like, the thing is, when I think of like the RPGs that like kind of set the standard for like RPG soundtracks, for example. I mean, we're going to wax poetic on soundtracks anyway in an RPG marathon, but like my opinion is like the benchmark and gold standard of the JRPG boss theme is this game's boss theme. It's like it ups the tempo, it ups the intensity, it feels like this fight has some stakes. I love this boss theme. There's a reason they remade it for Super Mario RPG.
Yeah.
And like the final portion of this run, the fight against Zeromus is just so unbelievably hype for this like time period.
So
I think it is the perfect way to like send off the marathon.
Yeah.
And like Spike said, it's a really fun way to kind of almost take the event full circle back to that very first. I remember we had the 4-person race. And I remember like the setup for that was wild back in the day. You had the 4 people on the couch. We had was it Dick and Feral Pigman were doing the commentary in the living room.
And Bick's getting slammed with the baseball bat every time.
This will be a very different run from that, or like the free enterprise runs that have shown up. But it's great to see this run get a different type of showcase too, because the energy for a race versus a solo run is so completely different too. It's a much more chill, it's much more exciting. When it's the finale of an event, there's so many more things that have to be done to make it really feel special. And I'm sure Rivers and the couch and the host are going to do a great job of making sure that this is truly what we need as a finale for the event.
Yeah, It's just a speedrun that's been worked on. I mean, a lot of these have been worked on, but so many people have put time into this. So you get to see like that perfectly chiseled little statue of a speedrun that like, there's not like a wasted item that is picked up. Like everything is exact to what level they need to get to even make someone like a Zeromus be defeated in a reasonable amount of time. It's it's a great speed run, and I think it's a perfect closer that they could have picked to close out RPG Limit Break 2024.
Yep, I do have one quick short clip here to show from this run. I was very tempted to just do the final boss of this run, but we want to kind of save it for the finale portions of the run. But yeah, so this is the example of one of the glitches. So this is actually a glitched run. The no 64 just means no like skipping a third of the game because of going upstairs a whole bunch. But the basic gist of this is, as I understood and had explained to me, so there's a glitch you can actually do where you use Palamon twin ability, and then like you cancel it by killing one of them off. And then you go to like have a character use an item, and then you switch out the items in the menu. And then once you like have like a character like try to use an item, fail, you switch out the items, and you like either kill or stop one of the characters using that item, because like what they're set to do is now use an unusable item. Then another character does it with twin, and then so you just see trash can glitch here, as it's called. I probably did not do that explanation justice, but yeah, you basically just use an unusable item, which can do some really jank things. And in this case, it's like you do 4,000 damage to Mylon Z, who does not have anywhere near that much health. I believe it's like you cast white like 8 times or something. That's what the notes said.
Also, it's funny to watch these runs too, because if you watch the end after the boss is like disappearing, you see them digging in the menu and reorganizing as the boss is dying, just because it saves time to do it there versus other points in the run. So cool to see like little optimizations like that show up in a run. It's the kind of stuff you only see in runs like Final Fantasy IV that have this kind of prestige and this pedigree and have been around for so long.
It's a very active combat system, like the way like you wouldn't think it like it's action RPG or it's a turn-based RPG. There's so much relying on how quickly you move through those menus and like how you're equipping stuff even during those menus. It's it's tough. I have a lot of respect for runners who can do this well. So.
Yeah, it kind of is natural. Like Final Fantasy, like ATB system Final Fantasy kind of naturally lends itself well to that stuff, because it's like the game wants you to do your stuff fast, because if you do it slowly, the enemy is going to hit you more. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's stuff like ATB weight tricking. I'm not sure how that applies to the route of 4, especially SNES 4, but like there is stuff that encourages you to kind of like wait. But in general, like, I think that's one of the things that makes runs of these games interesting. Just like it naturally encourages speed. And it is kind of another one of those runs on this schedule where you have glitches that like, you know, this is a glitched run that still showcases like the full game rather than like one of the credits warps or one of the like warp to Zeromus and then just like glitch the way through the fight. But yeah, there's some silly little tricks in this run, but it's still, you know, Final Fantasy IV largely as you know and love it. So I think it's a great way to send off the marathon. I think it'll be fantastic. It's one of our shorter finales I think we've had in a while, along with like KH3 from last year.
Yeah, which I mean, I think it'd be nice if we can get a few more people into the audience for like watching the closer finish out. But regardless, yeah, FF4, great closer to an unbelievable marathon that, you know, all of you who submitted to it, obviously this would not exist without you. And we're looking forward to May 19th. This whole event gets started in Salt Lake City, Utah, to celebrate awesome speedrunning and raise money for an amazing cause. So, with that, gentlemen, do we have any closing thoughts here? RPG Limit Break 2024, revealing the schedule here and moving back to May.
I mean, other than just generally being excited for Limit Break, because it's always so much fun to go to, one thing, and I would love to see this happen. We don't know if it will, just given the pace of things. But if you go to Limit Break's tracker, across the entire history of the event, we have raised $889,037 for NAMI. So we are less than 111,000 away from hitting an all-time total of $1 million raised. which
Wow.
we would love to be able to hit that this year.
It's so incredible. It really is. Like, as
Yeah.
been involved in this event since the very beginning, to see that number get closer and closer to like such a key milestone, really.
We hit about that amount, a little over that amount in 2017. In 2018, we hit 164. And then in 2019, we broke 200,000. So I believe that we can hit that $1 million raised for NAMI, a cause that is very near and dear to a lot of us. I know mental health is something that is a very personal subject for a lot of people. And NAMI has been an excellent partner with Limit Break in the past. We would really love to be able to hit that like special milestone for them. And I believe we can do it this year.
I believe in us, gamers. That would be sick. That's such a cool thing to call out right there. Coming up on $1 million total dollars raised. RPG Limit Break, one of the best charity speedrunning events out there. Make sure to show up, have a good time. And if you got a few dollars to spare, let's make it happen.
Because at the end of the day, it's what like we're here to show off some awesome RPGs, but we're also here to raise money for a fantastic cause.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, Ghoul, GK, this was a ton of fun. Get to analyze all. It's fun anytime the three of us get in a call, get nerdy about speedruns and get excited about schedules and give our thoughts on it. It's always a good time. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for joining us again this year, Spike.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Glad we got to have all three of us this
I know. I was going to say, like, last year I had to hop out for some other stuff I had going on, and I missed it. And I got to say, I really did miss, being in calls with both of y'all and just talking about a bunch of awesome speedruns, and getting to kind of showcase some of that knowledge and the research that we get to do when we go into these shows. So, yeah, Spike, GK, thanks for joining us on this, and thanks for letting me join in with y'all this year, and hopefully making the show what it is.
Yep. Let's make it more regular. All right, everyone. Y'all have
one last thing, Spike.
One last thing.
I do want to say thank you again so much to Ash and Mark for doing the tech behind the scenes for both this and the DQ podcast earlier. This would not be a thing or nearly as awesome or as easy without them. They make this so much easier. So thank you. And Spike, send it away.
Everyone, you all have a wonderful night. Make sure to check out RPG Limit Break starting this May 19th in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're going to be getting to watch a lot of awesome RPG speedruns. Everyone have a wonderful night, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.